Good evening. It's 5:30 p.m. on Wednesday, May 5th, 2021. And this is the regular meeting of the Sandpoint City Council. I now call to order. For the record, I am Mayor Shelby Ronstadt, presiding at Sandpoint Community Hall, 204 South First Avenue in Sandpoint, Idaho. Also present are council members Shannon Sherman, Deb Rule, Joel Spiro, John Darling, Kate McAllister, and Andy Grote. We'll now recite pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. First on the agenda this evening are announcements. Are there any announcements from council? Staff?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, we have 3 announcements tonight. The first one is regarding a surplus property, and we have an auction online, and people may not know about that. So I'm going to have Cheryl, our contracts and procurement officer, give the update on that.
Yeah, so I wanted to, good evening, Mr. Mayor, City Council. I wanted to provide information on how the community can participate in the online auctions for our declared surplus property. I placed a notice in the newspaper in the Daily Bee for a 2-week period. It provides the website of the online auction, which is www.publicsurplus.com. It provides a list of all the items as well as the auction number and the date of the auction release. That same information is then placed on our front page of the city's website. And it also provides the community the date period of the auction, the opening and the closing. And it has the same information that's in the newspaper. And then we also place it on our Facebook page. So we try and get the community as much information as we can so that they can participate and place bids on our items.
So we have a surplus on items on the agenda tonight, and they go into the public auction, and that's a new process for us implemented this year.
Yes.
So to get kind of more visibility to items that we're surplusing as the city, rather than having the chief hold an in-person auction. He lost his duties. We put it online. So, and it's worked pretty well for us with items
It has,
today.
our first auction, we had a little bidding war at the end, and a community member was one of the auction winners. So that was good to see. So the process is so far working.
Chief, you have a
Just added that. So if you look at that, there's 3 cars that are being sold. There are old Crown Vics that we've had since, I don't know, like, I'd say 1902, but I might be exaggerating a little bit. The good part about that is with selling those off, that means that 3 cars that you guys approved last year, then we outfitted this year through the budget. The last one just came in, striped, loaded with the canine. We have the funding to go ahead and put in an official canine cage, which has all the bells and whistles and the alarms. So if the car gets over like 75 degrees inside, all the whistles go off and the alarms sound so that the dog is safe. And so we spent a little bit of extra money on that we had, but we appreciate that from the council to be able to do that. So you'll see 3 new Dodge Durangos that run around because of that. So we thank you.
So if anybody out there is wanting to drive an old cop car,
Looks kind of official. There will be something on the website.
they will be up on the website next week.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks, Cheryl. I also wanted to take this opportunity tonight to introduce council to a new staff person. She is not on the agenda, so I'm doing it under announcements tonight. I have another staff person. I don't believe that council and public probably have had the chance to meet, and I'll do that as we get to that agenda item. But Susan Lowinger, who's back here in our staff area tonight, is our new city planner. So she started with us effective yesterday, attended Planning and Zoning Commission meeting last night. And we are really fortunate that Susan comes to us with over 19 years of planning experience, municipal planning experience, started as an intern and moved her way on up through the ranks with the city of Kirkland, Washington. And for those who don't know, When you're looking at planning departments across the country and really which are the best planning departments, which have best practices, Kirkland is one of the top 5 in the country. So Susan brings great experience working in a top-ranked planning department and is with us today. And for those that aren't aware too, our city planner is the same as our director of planning that we have had in the past. It reflects our organizational change with moving planning under infrastructure and development services in that division. We had a director that was reporting to a manager, so we kind of got that cleaned up when we hired Susan. But her roles and responsibilities for anyone in the community who's unclear, this is city planner. It is our former director of planning. The roles are the same. And Susan certainly brings in a great amount of experience. So we're glad to have her as part of our team.
Welcome.
And she hit the ground running yesterday. So
My last day in Kirkland was Monday and I started here Tuesday.
Wow.
I was working remote, so I just want to say I'm really, really happy to be here. I'm living in my dream place, having my dream job. So I really look forward to working with each and every one of you. And if you have any questions or anything, my door is always open. So I know you have a lot of projects.
I was gonna say,
Yeah, I know.
I
I already heard you talking about cottages. I'm like, I didn't know that's on the list. So yeah, anyway, I'm just really happy to be here. So thank you.
thank you, Susan. And speaking of doors, and another announcements, we have, well, it's true, what door do you go through?
Right.
You have on your agenda tonight, hopefully, we get approval to go out to bid with a remodel of City Hall, and I'll be talking about that later tonight on the agenda, but in preparation and planning for that. And also in order, as we're getting ready for that, to provide better customer service to our public, our building and planning department or service functions are moving here to Community Hall the end of this week, and we'll be opening here effective Monday. So we'll be getting announcements out this week, tomorrow, but for the public looking for building and planning services, building and planning or have meetings, will be located here at Community Hall beginning Monday of next week. So
Just to be clear, it's open to the public, is that correct?
yes,
Great.
that is correct. We encourage appointments for building and planning, but our staff will be here. Public meetings for building and planning will be here. All of our staff will be working out of Community Hall. So that will be next Monday. And finally, our last announcement that kind of came up as a little bit of an issue today. We have taken down our nets that we have up for baseball down at Memorial Field that prevent the fly balls from flying into the parking lot, which happens to be under construction. So it's convenient for us to be able to take those down at the moment. They are down effective today because the osprey are having a difficult time with seeing the nets. So the nets will be going back up tomorrow. We hope we have a lot of people who will be tying ribbons, and if there's any volunteers, they should contact Kim's office or come to Memorial Field tomorrow. We will be tying fluorescent pink ribbons, and I'm sorry for the visual appeal of that, onto the netting every 12 inches, all of that netting in order to protect the osprey. That they do not see our black nets down there on Memorial Field. So as soon as we became aware of that today, we pulled down the nets this afternoon.
While we're on the topic of nets, 3 weeks ago, I was driving past Memorial on Ontario, and there were a lot of people crossing the street at Florence. So my car got delayed. So I was more or less waiting in the middle of the street, and a stray lacrosse ball hit my side driver's window and scared you know what out of me, and hit almost hard enough to where it could have broken the glass. So we might need to relook at that because those lacrosse balls are hard and launching. And if that were a pedestrian it hit, it's fortunate that I did not have my window rolled down that day, because I probably would have been in the hospital with concussion. I mean, it hit so hard. I thought that there was a gunshot that went off. So I've been meaning to call you on that, but So I don't know if we can think about different netting. And I know that their goal is a fair distance from that fence, but it went right into the street.
Is that during a game or just them messing around, you know?
It was, I think they were warming up for a game.
Okay.
So it was not like just, you know, hooping around going on and, yeah.
Okay.
I'm not sure, but about 3
Okay.
weeks ago, I think, and it scared me, like, really scared me. Like,
Thank
not
you
just a
for,
little rock chip in the windshield kind of scared.
thank you for letting us know. And so we'll take a look at that. Our options, we contacted our birds of prey expert, correct, Kim? Regarding the concerns with the osprey, and our options were to spray paint the netting fluorescent color or put these ribbons on it. So we're gonna try the ribbons and see how that goes, as opposed to having a fluorescent painted net, and we'll continue to monitor it. And if it's an issue, we will pull down nets again. So anyway, that's why people will see that change at Memorial Field, and we apologize for our pink ribbons. It's not symbolizing anything other than protecting the osprey at the nearby nest.
And they will see it. We all.
Or,
I have two proclamations to read this evening. The first is a proclamation of Mental Health Awareness Month. Whereas millions of Americans are living with the burden of a mental health problem. They shoulder conditions like depression and anxiety, post-traumatic stress, and bipolar disorder, debilitating illnesses that can strain every part of a person's life. Whereas even though help is out there, less than half of children and adults with diagnosable mental health problems receive treatment. During Mental Health Awareness Month, we shine a light on these issues, stand with those in need, and redouble our efforts to address mental health concerns. Whereas we affirm our commitment to dispelling stigma around mental illness and reassuring every individual suffering from mental illness that they are not alone. For many, getting help starts with a conversation. People who believe they may be suffering from a mental health condition should talk about it with someone they trust and consult a healthcare provider. Whereas it is up to all of us to know the signs of mental health issues and lend a hand to those who are struggling. Shame and stigma too often leave people feeling like there's no place to turn. We need to make sure they know that asking for help is not a sign of weakness, but a sign of strength. Whereas mental health problems remain a serious public health concern, but together we are making progress, and this month we can advance this important work by raising awareness about mental health and lending strength to all who need it. Now, therefore, I, Shelby Ronstadt, Mayor of Sandpoint, do hereby proclaim May 2021 as Mental Health Awareness Month at Sandpoint, and encourage all citizens to join us in this worthy observance. And this is also Idaho Archaeology and Historic Preservation Month at Sandpoint. Whereas Idaho's cultural heritage has been rich and diverse, as represented by the thousands of archaeological and historical sites, historic architecture, and landscapes that have been identified and recorded throughout our state. Whereas the protection and preservation of these sites, buildings, and landscapes provide educational, scientific, and economic benefits for all citizens. Whereas it is important to celebrate the role of history in our lives and the contributions made by dedicated individuals who preserve the tangible aspects of the heritage that shape us as Idahoans. Whereas the world around us is full of stories, from the smallest arrow point to the largest historic buildings to a carved aspen tree, our cultural resources tell the stories of Idaho, its people, and its history, and are the things that remind us of our past, which have helped shape who we are today and what we will become in the future. Whereas to enhance public awareness of archaeology, history, and preservation in Idaho, the Idaho State Historical Society is recognizing Idaho Archaeology and Historic Preservation Month in conjunction with partners throughout the state. Whereas in Sandpoint, we value preservation of places of architectural, historical, and cultural importance, which strengthens Sandpoint's sense of place and community identity, and promote local creativity, as evidenced by the recently adopted Arts, Culture, and Historic Preservation Plan. And whereas historic preservation supports economic development, tourism, and quality of life in our community and contribute overall to our community vitality. Now, therefore, I, Shelby Ronstadt, Mayor of Sandpoint, do hereby proclaim May 2021 as Idaho Archaeology and Historic Preservation Month in Sandpoint, and encourage our citizens to celebrate the history and archaeology of Idaho and our local community. In conjunction with this proclamation, I'd like to announce that the city will be accepting applications for appointments to the new Arts, Culture, and Historic Preservation Commission. We are encouraging applications from nonprofit arts organization leaders, individuals with a demonstrated interest in and commitment to historic preservation, those with professional expertise in fine art, public art, arts education, performance art, architecture, historic preservation, and representatives from the Native American tribes in our region. Also, if you are a Sandpoint property or business owner with an interest in arts, culture, and historic preservation, you are welcome to apply as well. We will also be appointing someone from the community at large. Those interested in serving will find the application form under news and announcements on the city's website at www.sandpointidaho.gov. The link will also be posted on the city's Facebook page. We anticipate that the application will be posted and available beginning sometime tomorrow. We will now proceed with the public forum portion of the meeting this evening. It gives the public the opportunity to address the council and myself regarding items listed on the consent calendar or on any topic not listed on the agenda. At this time, I will take just a moment to recite the rules and procedure for public comment during the Sandpoint City Council meeting, both during public forum and during other opportunities for public comment during the meeting. To accommodate those who wish to speak on general items during the public forum, as well as those who wish to speak on specific business items on our agenda, a total of 20 minutes will be dedicated to the full public forum at the beginning of the meeting. If you'd like to speak and do not have an opportunity to do so, we'll give everyone an opportunity to speak by reopening the public forum at the end of our regular agenda. Please note, if you are participating by Zoom, you'll need a working microphone on your smartphone or computer in order to participate. When your name is called, you'll see a prompt on your screen to unmute. You'll need to press or click the unmute button in order to be heard. For those participating in the meeting room in person, if you wish to speak, you'll need to fill out a sign-up form and hand it to the clerk here. The sign-up forms are at the front table up there by the door. It'd be appreciated if, in the interest of time, that you would not repeat prior comments made by others, but simply state your support for those comments. Comments shall not be personally derogatory, nor shall they be personally directed at any individual, organization, or business. Public comment opportunities during meetings are for comments only. Do not direct any questions to the mayor or city council or city staff during your comments, please. Each speaker will be allowed 3 minutes, which will be counted down using our timer stoplight. The green light will indicate 1 minute remaining. The yellow light indicates 30 seconds left. And when the light turns red, your time has expired. We will now begin with the first 20 minutes of public forum. Madam Clerk, has anyone signed up to speak for the public forum?
No, Mr. Mayor, I do not have anybody signed up for public forum.
Okay. Looks like
Mr.
we have
Mayor?
one in the audience. Yeah, please come forward. And you can just step up to the podium there and hand us that one.
Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Jane Purdy. Thank you, Mayor and Council men and women. I wanted to, hearing the Mayor proclamation on the Mental Health Awareness Month, I suppose that's probably a good idea, but I feel like one of the most powerful ways that we can assist people in their mental health, considering this last year and all this happened with this quote pandemic. I'm delighted to see that most members are not feeling the need to wear a mask any longer. For an illness that has a smaller death rate than the flu does every year, it is absolutely atrocious what has happened in our communities. And releasing our communities, regardless of what the federal government chooses to do, we can make a difference here in our communities to allow people to meet normally, to be normal, to have their freedoms without feeling like they have to fight for their freedoms or be belittled for their freedoms. It's time. It's just really time. And then just a comment on what's coming. I'm not sure, there may be an opportunity to speak later, but on the item 7A on the special event permit denial, unless the Sandpoint town has a plan to have a parade, I hope that they will reconsider and allow this event to take place.
Thank you, Ms. Hardy, for those comments. Is there anyone else here that would like to speak during the public forum portion of the meeting? All right, seeing none, that concludes the public forum for this evening. Next on the agenda is the consent calendar. For the record, the total amount of bills is $167,688.46 for regular payables. Are there any items council wishes to remove from the consent calendar? Seeing none, I would entertain a motion that the consent calendar be approved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? This will be a roll call vote.
Councilwoman Sherman,
Yes.
Councilman Darling,
Yes.
Councilman Groot,
Yes.
Councilwoman McAllister,
Yes.
Councilwoman Rule,
Yes.
Councilman Sprow.
Yes.
Consent calendar is approved. Next on the agenda is a hearing pursuant to City Code 6-6-10 on an appeal from Sandpoint Independence Day Incorporated to the denial of their application for a special event permit to host a 4th of July parade in downtown Sandpoint. Per city code, council can make a decision this evening or can take the matter under advisement and make a decision at a later meeting sometime before the date of the planned event. The appellant will have an opportunity to state their case, but please note that this is not a public hearing and therefore public comment will not be taken. First, we will hear a presentation for City Administrator Jennifer Stevens.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I included a staff report with this item in your packet, and I will just give a brief summary of what's in the staff report. City administration through our designated special events coordinator, which is typically our executive assistant at the city who works in my office and my office and the mayor's office, is responsible for issuing special event permits in accordance with Chapter 5 of our city code as adopted by council. That typically involved in our special events is our coordinator in our office. Myself, Chief Kuhn is also very involved in most of the events because security issues impacts with police, but on other events, it's typically our Parks and Rec Director, Kim Woodruff, as well as Infrastructure and Development, Amanda, and related to impacts on streets where we're blocking off streets and need to have consideration for that. Back in 2020, the Sandpoint Lions Club had canceled their permitted 4th of July celebration. That cancellation came through, was announced on May 16th. And following the cancellation by the Lions Club last year, we received a permit application from a newly formed nonprofit organization, Sandpoint Independence Day, requesting to hold an Independence Day parade, family festival at Traverse Park, and fireworks at Sandpoint City Beach to replace the event that the Lions had typically held. A permit was issued for these activities, and I want to emphasize that there wasn't an issue relative to the conduct of those activities, the permit, or any otherwise issue from city administration perspective relative to Sandpoint Independence Day. We had a good event last year, and things went in accordance to the application that was submitted and approved by the city. Following the cancellation from the Lions Club in late May, I had asked Mary Malone, who was our executive assistant special events coordinator at that time, to follow up with the Lions Club and get some clarification as to whether they were discontinuing their hosted events only for the single year due to the COVID pandemic, or was it in fact that they were no longer going to continue with the parade? Because we kind of heard rumors going around about both things. although the official statement from the Lions was that they were canceling the parade due to the pandemic. We did receive an email back from the Lions Club on June 8th that requested that their event permit fee and their application be rolled over to 2021 for a parade and fireworks event to occur this year. They were advised at that time that we could roll over their application fee, but they would need to submit a new application for 2021 because we do not accept applications in accordance with our policy more than 12 months in advance. They did submit a complete application to the city on July 20th. On July 9th, we received a separate application from the Sandpoint Independence Day, a nonprofit organization, for a parade in 2021, fireworks in 2021, and for a festival again at Traverse Park. In accordance with our special event policies, the way that we handle our permits is when permits come in, we're typically processing them when they come in and in consideration of traditional event dates. There has been some conversations back and forth between city staff as well as the Sandpoint Independence Day group as to what the intent of traditional event days is in our special events policy and procedure. And for clarification for council and the public, our special events policy and procedure was drafted and developed by our former city clerk, Mari Peck. But she did it in collaboration and in conjunction with the police chief, myself, with Kim, with Amanda, looking at other cities' special event policies and procedures, but also what our traditional policy practices had been and what our intent was here. So when our special event policy references traditional event dates, there is no lack of clarity for administration staff as to what was intended and meant by that. It meant that our traditional events such as Carolyn Gleason's Lost in the 50s event, the Sandpoint Lions Club 4th of July celebration, POAC's Arts and Crafts Fair, and the Festival at Sandpoint's Festival are given preference for their events. In fact, we typically know from those event holders the year before what their dates are that they're looking for and the subsequent year. And we kind of black out those dates and we aren't permitting other events on those dates. Typically, we do not see full event applications, especially from our return permittees, until 60 to 90 days before the event. In fact, this year, we only heard weeks ago that Carolyn decided not to do Lost in the 50s this year due to COVID impacts and the closure of the border between Canada and the United States. So we typically would have been processing her event application about that time. So when the public heard about it, that was the first we had heard that she was doing a definitive cancellation this year. Even with regard to the festival coming up in July and August, we have recently received their application. We received their full application materials last week. We have not permitted that event. We're still going through application materials with questions related to the festival for their event this summer. And with POAC, we just received their full application for their event last week, I believe. So last week, early this week. So it's not typical that atypical that we're receiving event applications for our traditional events 60 to 90 days out. When we received the two applications in July and rolled over again from the Lions Club, we had a conversation with the Lions Club representative, Janice Radar, who submitted their application, that we wanted to have a meeting between the two groups. That again, Lions Club was the traditional event holder, but maybe there was an opportunity for the two groups to work together to discuss splitting up events because the Lions had not proposed a festival in the park. They had only proposed the parade as well as the fireworks. In August, we started with the Lions Club, working with Janice on scheduling availability, and she was out of town for the month of August. So we agreed that we would wait until the fall to schedule the meeting between the two groups. When fall came around, at the time that we would typically be looking at scheduling that meeting, last year was an unusual year for us, and we were in the midst of dealing with differing regulations coming out related to COVID, as well as we were at the point of guidance from the governor and restrictions through the governor where we could not permit events larger than 10 people. So we were not permitting any of our events at that time because there were so many unknowns as to what was going to happen with gatherings, events, the ability for us to come together as a community and celebrate anything, and when those restrictions would be released. We began to see restrictions released on group sizes in February of this year. And at that time, Janice followed up with the city again to pick up discussions about the 4th of July event. Following that discussion, we had several conversations with both the Lions Club as well as the Sandpoint Independence Day group, encouraging them to figure out a path forward rather than the city having to choose between the two organizations, i.e. figuring out how to split up events. We did have conversations with most groups relative to preference for historical or traditional events. And both the chief and I were involved in those conversations. We kind of put the chief on first because he works closely with the Lions Club. And we were handling some other special events. We've got a number of special events come through. So this one kind of went over to the chief to be on first with having conversations with both groups and seeing if there was an opportunity, how they work something out that we could move forward with a permitting process based on the recommendation of the groups. Following a meeting between the groups, we were contacted by both groups requesting that, again, they receive the permit for the parade. And it put us in the position where we had to make a decision on how to move forward to ensure that we do have an Independence Day parade and a broader, hopefully broader Independence Day celebration in the community. After reviewing the requests and again, consistent with our event policy about getting preference for traditional event dates and the fact that the Lions has held the parade and fireworks and used to have family festival down at City Beach, a decision was made administratively to issue the permit for the parade to the Sandpoint Lions Club and in deference to the Sandpoint Independence Day group and their desire to hold an event and their successful event that last year we made a decision administratively that we would offer the opportunity to the Sandpoint Independence Day group to host both the fireworks as well as the family festival at the park. We did receive communication back from the Lions again that they are interested in holding the fireworks. That was part of their permit application, but we indicated that we were giving first priority for that to the Sandpoint Independence Day group. They have not confirmed with us, although I have requested on several occasions confirmation that they want to move forward with the permitting for the fireworks as well as the festival date. And also we are still pending receipt of all of the required elements for a complete application from the Sandpoint Independence Day group. So the payment of the permit fees, as well as a current insurance letter naming the city as an additional insured for 2021. So we have not been in a position to move forward with processing the permit for the other two events because I'm still waiting for that confirmation and we need those two items to have a complete application. We did have a complete application from Sandpoint Lions Club. We have approved their parade route, which is their traditional parade route. gone through all of the security issues with them and issued the permit for the parade to the Lions Club. So that is confirmed at this time. The fireworks kind of remain up in the air as well as the family festival.
Does council have any questions for staff?
You said Sandpoint Independence Day, nonprofit, they don't have their insurance for what, which part?
The city needs to be named as an additional insured for our larger events in accordance with our policy. And they did have that insurance last year. And they did provide an insurance certificate when they applied in July, but it is expired. So we need an insurance certificate that is current that would cover the city for an event this year on the 4th of
And
July.
you said you didn't get a response.
I have not received that, no.
Well, any other questions for staff?
Yeah, I do have one more. When did the Lions Club submit their permit? Completed?
The Lions Club requested that their permit fee be rolled over to 2021 on June 8th.
2000.
They had also requested at that time that their application be rolled over to 2021. And we had communicated back to them that they would need to submit a new application. We received the application from the Sandpoint Independence Day group on July 9th. We received the full and complete application from the Sandpoint Lions Club on July 20th.
So they wanted it on June 8th, but they didn't get it all completed to July 20th. Is that correct?
They could not submit an application until 12 months in advance,
Okay,
so we
perfect.
wouldn't roll over the same application.
Understood. Right.
And they would have been in the same position with an insurance certificate that had expired. So we received a complete application with them that was rolled over permit fees. We had their parade route. We had all of their required documentation on July 20th.
Thank you.
Was there any discussion with the group to work in conjunction with the Lions Club to combine the parade events together? Whether that's having them one at 9 o'clock and one at 10 o'clock per se, using the same route. Is there any discussion about that?
We did not have a discussion specifically about kind of two different parades, but we did have discussions, and probably the chief can help answer this too, because he had many more conversations than I did. But in meetings that I was in conversations with both parties that I participated in, we gave suggestions for, somebody being a sponsor, somebody else being the grand marshal. We gave just ideas, not any structure to how that would exactly work, but those are conversations I was involved in, and I think there were additional.
Chief, I only asked because if there was a day to, to continue celebration, that would be my favorite day. The parade never seems to be long enough, and the fireworks never seem to be long enough. So exploiting it and elongating it to me doesn't seem like any kind of setbacks unless you have some concerns.
Absolutely. One of the things when we talked with both parties, or when I talked with them, that was the hope, was that both parties could come up with like a mutual agreement of working together to make the event like one of the biggest events that we've had in years. That was the hope. Unfortunately, it just didn't work out in that situation. And we threw, like what Jennifer said, a lot of different ideas. Doing two parades in one day wasn't one that came up. It was more of combining their efforts in a partnership to make a great event for not only the parade, but also the fireworks show. So.
And for clarity, our permit for the Lions Club includes their traditional kids parade in advance of the full parade. So they kind of have their two different parades that occur as part of their larger parade event.
Yes.
So as council now, we just have to do what's best for the city and approve or deny this request to facilitate, the 4th of July celebration. Is that correct?
Yes, our special events policy provides in the case that administration denies a permit, that there is an opportunity for a party to appeal to city council. I do have to say, what we did not anticipate with our policy, so we didn't provide any other detail on it, was a case where we have two parties applying for essentially the exact same event on the same day, because I don't know that there's no recollection of any city staff person of that ever having happened in our history. So we certainly didn't anticipate that happening this year. And so we didn't provide what to do in a particular case and a suggested policy where a permit was granted to one party and not a second party. So there's just the appeal process.
I have one last question. Can you expand on what didn't happen or what happened between the two groups to not facilitate working collectively together? Can you be more specific?
So I didn't join those meetings, so I know that the Lions Club and both organizations, the Sandpoint Independence Group and the Lions Club both met, I believe on a couple different occasions to try to work that out. I wasn't present for them, so I don't know exactly how that conversation went, but the goal is for those two organizations to sit down and come up with a plan and then come back. Like what Jennifer said, whether that was one being in charge of the permit and then partnering, grand marshaling, supporting, using it as a fundraising avenue for their event, and just coming up with those ideas. So I wasn't present for either of those two group meetings. The goal was to let them hopefully solve that issue on their own. But they both came back and said they both want to be the primary on the permit. Is really what it comes down to. And so it put the city in a situation of making a decision on who gets the permit.
And Mr. Mayor, if I may, we advised the Sandpoint Independent State Group, they would have an opportunity to make a presentation to council, up to a 10 to 15-minute presentation. So I believe they're here to provide that. And we also have the president, Rhonda is here as president of the Sandpoint Lions Club. And I know she also would like to make a statement to council. So if there are specific questions on things that staff weren't involved on, both parties are here tonight too.
Good. Okay, with that, are there any more questions for staff at this point?
I guess no matter how the vote goes tonight, how would we deal with that in the future? I'm a big proponent of competition. I think competition, whether it's in business or situations like this, what if there is another event or group that can give the public a better opportunity, a better 4th of July or a better festival or a better whatever, how could we look forward in the future on changing this policy of where it is a council decision as opposed to an administration decision where what if they can offer something better for the community? How do we deal with that? Or is it always going to be one particular group on those days and never have an opportunity for somebody else to do something better?
We are looking at updates to our special events policy and plan on having that come back to council. We don't have a proposal, I can tell you at this point.
Right,
related
yes, I'm just
to
thinking for.
something in that regard, but when the policy comes back to council, if council would like to have discussion or changes to anything in the event policy, that can certainly occur when the revised event policy comes forward. So we've had many new events come up this
Right.
year. And so we're finding that we need to do an update based on the policy.
Appreciate that.
Yeah.
Mr. Mayor, it's not really a question, it's more of a statement. So with that, the Sandpoint Independence Group, they're owed and deserve a big thank you from the community. I participated in the event. They did it. They delivered what it was that they said that they were going to do. And that's something that we want from any citizen group that is brave enough to step inside of challenging times, which all of last year was. So big thank you to them. And then also a big thank you to you guys, because the statement that was made was that we realized that the outcome may not be ideal for either organization individually, but we are hopeful that it provides a compromise and recognizes the contributions, the volunteer time, and commitment of both organizations for the greatest benefit of our broader community. That, I think, is our statement of this year as a whole. So regardless of what the outcome is, the thank you needs to go to the citizen groups that step into the void and provide a great event for us and for all of us to yet again come back together for the broader, greater good of our community.
Yes, we would have denied if the Sandpoint Independent State Group had not put on a good event in accordance with our permit. We would not have considered even reviewing an application. It would have been denied at the outset, and that's provided for in our policy. So we were hopeful that we would not be in this situation and have to make a choice administratively, but unfortunately, in this particular case, the parties didn't come to a resolution to get presented to us. Both wanted to be the permittee for the two events.
All right, next we will hear from the appellants. If the applicants would like to approach the podium and state your name. That'd be great. I'd love to hear what you have to say.
Should have been 9.
Was there an extra copy of that packet that went around?
Probably,
If there is, if you just give it to Melissa for the record. Thank you. I just want to make sure it's out. I didn't count. So that's an extra for the.
Grab yours for the record.
Floor is yours.
For the record, my name is Ron Korn. I'm the president of Sandpoint Independence Day. To my right is Steve Osoko. To my left is Todd Prather. We're the 3 board members of the corporation. We're here tonight to appeal the city's decision to deny Sandpoint Independence Day the 4th of July permit. I apologize now for probably saying a lot of things that Jennifer already said. I wasn't expecting that. What we've done is made some bullet points, so it's kind of easy to follow. Starting off with the first 4, and then we're going into just a little brief background of what has taken place in the last year. We feel a permit for the parade was denied against city policy, and we would like the permit reissued for Sandpoint Independence Day in accordance with the Sandpoint City Special Events Policy found on page 6 of your special events policies. Number 1, there's a 1 sentence in your policy that defines the process for determining who gets the permit when there are 2 competing permit requests, such as the case between Sandpoint Independence Day and the Sandpoint Lions Club. And I'm going to quote that 1 sentence. It's in attachment 1 if you guys would like to follow me. Permit requests utilizing the same venue or venues that may affect one another are evaluated on the date a completed permit application is received and traditional event dates. That's what your policy states. Bullet number 2, the completed permit application for SID was submitted on July 9th, 2020 for the traditional Independence Day event. The Lions Club turned theirs in later that month. At this time, I would like to play just a short recording of a telephone call, probably 10 or 15 seconds long, that confirms that.
And Mary told us that we had, and unfortunately, this came on to the Lions Club email. So the president for me, Mary telling them, you guys have the first permit. And less than 2 hours, she emailed me back that Jennifer had changed her mind. And it was going to be a first time. And you guys.
For the record, that was a phone call that I had with Janice Rader, the vice president of the Lions Club. Janice worked with us all along in helping us with the first parade that we did last year. And in every single conversation that I had had with her, including this one, she had made it very clear that her and a lot of the Lions Club members wanted to pass off the 4th of July, and they did not want to do this anymore. And that if we did a good job with this, they have so many different events to do that they wanted to kind of give this up, which is why we formed a corporation and decided to move forward with doing it for the near future.
And that can also be confirmed on the last page of your packet on the email where it's highlighted. If you guys would like to take a quick look at that, it confirms what the phone recording there also said. Bullet point number 3, an email from Jennifer Stapleton. She stated that the city was granting the parade permit to the Lions Club on the basis of, and I quote, "Our city special events policy gives priority to historical events and permittees. In keeping with our policy and after consulting with the mayor, the city of Sandpoint will issue a permit to the Sandpoint Lions Club for the parade." And I would like to refer back to attachment number 2 for that email. Highlighted there. As far as her quotes for the reason of giving a permit to the Lions Club. We have not been able to find anywhere in the city policy where it states that. I would challenge you guys to show us where it states that. We can't find it. It does exist, but we have not found it.
What we're referring to is the words historical event permittees, and, you know, there's nothing in there. It says traditional event dates.
Because words matter.
Words matter. It is not written. There is nothing in city policy that protects last year's permit holder or 70 years worth of permit holders. It just says traditional event dates. And the first person to get their permit in.
Bullet point 4, the reason given in the formal denial from Jennifer Stapleton is, and I quote, "Specifically, we are denying your request for a permit for parade for this is an event that has historically been put on by the Sandpoint Lions Club for over 60 years." So again, we have to ask, we're being formally denied, and nowhere is there a reference to your city policies. You can also, I believe, attachment number 3 has a letter from Jennifer Stapleton, quoting what I just read. So a brief background real quick, chronological order, bullet points. Lions Club canceled 7 weeks prior to the July 4th event in 2020. We formed Sandpoint Independence Day in an effort to save the celebration of independence in Sandpoint. Meanwhile, we were in contact with Janice Rader, the Lions Club Vice President, and she was helping us with tips and contacts on who they usually work with. 7 weeks was very difficult to try and pull this off. We had no idea who to talk to for traffic. We had no idea who put on the fireworks show. Steve was having conversations with Janice. Janice was helping Steve out, giving us the names of the fireworks contractor and so on, so that we could pull this segment off in such a short period of time. We were told by Janice that the Lions Club was no longer interested in hosting the event at that point, and we're content with that as long as we were interested in carrying on the traditional events. We invited the Lions Club to the Grand Marshal, to be the Grand Marshal of the parade last year with no response. Sid succeeded in throwing a parade, the biggest fireworks show ever, and added the family festival day at Traverse Park. At this time, I'd like to play a second recording from Janice and Steve's phone conversation, confirming that we did a great job and their desire to hand over the events. So what we're hoping that to achieve with a few phone recordings here is the main fact that the 3 of us and Sandpoint Independence Day had no intentions of stealing or anything else the 4th of July parade or the fireworks show or anything else. We were stepping in filling a void. And then with our discussions with the vice president at the time, we were under the impression that they didn't want to do it anymore. So then we formed a corporation and we're like, well, let's just carry this on. This will be the new position. And not at all did we ever attempt or want to step in and steal this or anything. So I want to be clear about that. This isn't a power grab or anything like that. It was filling a void and then continuing to fill that void with our understanding with Vice President of the Lions Club.
And again, there were multiple phone conversations. Every conversation was, if you guys can do a good job, we'd be happy to hand it off. We've got a lot of members that are kind of over it, and we've got so many things that we do, and it had to have been said to me at least 10 times. So we were under the impression all along that this is the vice president. This is not just a member of the Lions Club. The vice president who's telling us, so that's kind of why we formed a corporation and decided this is not just going to be a one-off event, we need to carry this tradition on for as long as we go.
So next thing in chronological order, on July 9th, Sid submitted our completed application form for Independence Day 2021. Along with that, I would like to say that our insurance is current still, it has not expired. And as far as the money goes, if that is an issue, I offered to pay and write a check when I turned in the application, and Mary wouldn't accept it. We addressed the two things that were said earlier.
So our insurance runs till what, June something?
Yeah,
And
the first part.
We plan on renewing it. Do any of you guys renew your insurance 6 months ahead of time, or do you renew it when it comes in? You renew it when it comes in. I don't think that when we turned in this application, we had bought an insurance for a year. It was a month and a half, it was a month in. Why would we renew our insurance a year ahead of time? So that, using that as an excuse that that's not a completed application, to me is not really a fair statement.
So we turned our completed application in on July 9th. Lions Club turned theirs in a couple weeks later, the 20th. Next, we spoke with Janice about meeting and discussing the 2021 event. That was in July, I'm sorry. Janice was to reply with available dates to meet that we never heard back from. I guess, so, and something else that was brought up was evidently talks between the city and the Lions Club was to postpone those meetings till fall, which this was the first I've heard that tonight. Fast forward to February 2021, I walked into City Hall to check on our permit status and was told by Mary Malone that the city would be discussing upcoming large events later in March. Multiple attempts were made on our part to contact the city without any return calls or texts. We were having a hard time trying to figure out what was going on. I think there was some talks going on between the city and the Lions Club, and we kept it pushed back in the corners how we feel. Multiple attempts, let's see, despite no formal requirement by city policy to do so, we complied with the city's multiple requests from the city manager, Jennifer Stapleton, and the police chief, Corey Kuhn, to meet with the Lions Club. After several attempts to do so, we finally got a great meeting with the Lions Club on Monday, March 29th, 2021, and invited them to sponsor, volunteer, and grand marshal the parade for 2021. They seemed happy with that proposal and were to take it back to the club for final approval the following Monday. At this time, I would like you guys to understand that we were still under the impression that we had already gotten the permit. There was no reason not to believe anything otherwise. So Sandpoint Independence Day met with the city 2 days later on Wednesday and were told that they were waiting to hear from the Lions Club. The Lions Club wasn't meeting until the following Monday to present the members with our offer. The next day, on Thursday, April 1st, before the Lions Club had met to vote, Jennifer Stapleton emailed us that Shelby and her had decided to issue the permit to the Lions Club for the parade, and that Sid would be getting the permit for the fireworks and festival before the two private corporations had a chance to finalize that. Sandpoint Independence Day disagreed with that decision as it did not appear to adhere to the Sandpoint City Special Events Policy. Sandpoint Independence Day made repeated attempts to get this hearing to appeal to City Council. Eventually, we were informed by Jennifer that a formal denial was required to be issued by the city in order to get on the agenda for the appeal. A few weeks later, we finally received a formal denial and were then able to get on the agenda to appear before you tonight. Mary Malone had further informed the Lions Club in an email on June 8th, 2020, that the permit for the event would be served on a first come, first served basis. Yet they neglected to submit the permit on that at that time. And attachment number 4 has a copy of that email stating originally, Mary, I think, emailed the Lions Club stating that they were getting the permit, and then 30 minutes later, they got another email stating that Jennifer had changed her mind and it was on a first come, first served basis.
And they were told that they had to resubmit a permit for 2021. They could do so up to a year in advance. They didn't do so until July 20th. We did it on July 9th. When we did it on July 9th, we didn't put that permit on July 9th because we thought we were competing with the Lions Club. We put that permit in because we read your policy. And your policy says what it says, which is applicants for the competing event will be considered on the date of the completed application. We didn't want somebody else to come along and put in a permit, whoever it may be. We had no idea we'd be competing with the Lions Club because all of our prior conversations with them were kind of stating, you guys take this, you run with it, you know, you did a great job, you go. And we didn't hear anything, so we were supposed to have a meeting with the Lions Club talking just after the 4th of July. And then they never bothered to contact us until within the past couple of months. So we planned a whole year. We've been planning the parade, fireworks, everything. I mean, it's pretty much done. But we did that all based on adhering to your policy. You know, what they were told in June that they needed to submit a new application.
The policy and the things that we were being told.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So not really sure how the policy is being interpreted in the ways it is, but none of that is in your policy if you read it. I've read it at least 100 times.
A concern that we have is the ongoing potential for Sandpoint Independence Day celebrations to be canceled the next time the Lions Club or whoever is doing something like this, in the next pandemic or the next natural disaster or whatever the case is. We don't want to see Sandpoint in our community lose the celebration. That's why we stepped up to the plate last year. And we're not going to ever cancel it, no matter what, permit or no permit. If we all have to wear gas masks and chemical suits, we'll be down here driving our floats down around the city, as long as we're still allowed to drive. That's where we stand. I want you guys to understand that. Nothing's going to stop us from having the 4th of July celebration in our community. Nonetheless, the primary cause for our appeal today is to get a determination from the city council whether or not Jennifer Stapleton and Shelby Rockstad acted in accordance to city policies. We are not here to determine the intent of your city policies, but rather what the city policy actually states. Your special events policy seems quite clear to us. Again, Jennifer mentioned earlier, the intent was, we don't know what the intent was. I don't know how we could even sit here and try and all agree on what the intent was because we don't know what the intent was. But what does it say? In closing, we cannot find the policy that gives any authority to split the permit as submitted. So I'm not really quite sure how that all came about. Either you accept the permit as submitted or deny it. And this situation was kind of rare that it got split for some reason. I don't see anywhere in your city policy that gives authorization to split a permit. Again, correct me if I'm wrong. And who makes the decision how to split that? So we were never, it was never discussed with our group. Would you guys rather do the parade? Would you guys rather do the fireworks show? There was no discussion of that whatsoever. It was just a decision made by the city to split it. This is what you get and this is what they get. And my question is, how did that come about? The reasons for denying the permit do not exist in city policy that I stated earlier. And we would like to leave it to the city council tonight to decide whether the special events policy was followed or violated. That is really the only question that we have for the city council tonight. And we hope that you guys could come to a decision tonight, since here we are again, almost deja vu, 8 weeks before the event. Is there any questions?
Does council have any questions for their call?
I had one question specific to the payment for the permit. Can you elaborate when you came in to pay for it and you were refused?
So I submitted the application online because that was a new thing this year. So I fumbled my way through that. Followed up the next day in person to submit a check with that. And Mary Belono, we don't need to take the money right now for this.
Just because it was unnecessary.
It was so early in the process.
I can only speculate. I don't know why, but
I appreciate this. This is really well done. Thank you.
thank you.
So again, I mean, really, there's a lot of history here, a lot of stuff that we talked about that we wanted to get out there, so people understood our intent and our reasoning for wanting to continue with 4th of July and everything. But the real question here is, there's one sentence in city policy about this kind of situation where there are 2 people for the same thing. Read it. What does it say? Not the intent, not what people hoped it said, not what people wished it said. And I'm pretty sure that you guys in the next couple months are gonna have another meeting, and somewhere in there, you're gonna change city policy, and it's gonna say, we want to protect historical event permittees or last year's permittees or something like that, but it doesn't say it now. It does not say it now.
And we would like to see that policy
Yeah.
change to read something like that to protect the current person that's sponsoring or putting on that event. Why should Carolyn or anyone else have to rush down the day after the event to put in next year's permit? That's just crazy.
And that's what we did, because that's what the policy says, and words matter.
Mayor, to be clear, so they present their case, we get to hear the Lions Club, and there will be opportunity for rebuttal or questions.
Yeah.
If we're done with them now.
I don't think we need to do a rebuttal, but we can, so it'd be important now to ask all your questions of the appellant now.
Want to make sure, so.
Mr. Mayor.
Yeah, that's good.
So have you submitted your payment and renewed insurance at this point in time?
We have not renewed our insurance yet because it doesn't expire until 1st. We have not gotten our renewal notice from our insurance company. Payment has never been, again, it was denied. We feel, honestly, it's been a struggle. I try to call, nobody returns my phone calls, or it takes 7 days. We were put off. I go to Melissa Ward and say, how do I get on the city agenda? Nobody answers me. 4 days later, I email her. She says, oh, sorry, Jennifer's handling that. Then Jennifer sends me something and says, oh, you need a formal, I mean, it's just been a struggle to even get anything. And the only way I actually got something done is I walked down to City Hall and just walked in and said, I'm sick and tired of being ignored. Walked in, saw the look on Mary Malone's face, like, uh-oh, here's Steve. And walked up to her and said, I need to get a meeting with Corey and Jennifer, because this is going on too long. We got the event coming up, nobody's answering anything. And in doing a public records request, I don't know if you guys saw that, I'm sure you got CC'd. There was a text from Mary and Corey. I didn't say anything to him. I just told him he needed a meeting. So it's like, it's clear we were being put off. And in a lot of those other public records request documents, it seems like the Lions Club sends an email, man, they got answered within a day. We make a phone call, we send an email, it's like pulling teeth to try to get answered. And we tried to pay when we gave the application in I don't know what the deal was and why she, I don't want to accept that yet. Documents were given, the Traverse Park, I mean, our parade route, everything, nothing changed. We gave them copies of everything and said, this is what we're gonna do again in 2021. So everything's there, the insurance is still valid. Again, I will present that question to you. When do you renew your insurance? You renew your insurance when your insurance company sends you a thing that says, here's your renewal. Why would we do it? We had a year policy. Why would we do that 11 months in advance? Doesn't.
I understand. What
Yeah.
I was trying to get at is what's required now. If you were to
We could go.
accept that, to say, yes,
Yeah.
we do want to do the fireworks, and yes, we do want to do
Yep.
the family event, which is great.
Sure.
From a city perspective, which I'm also just looking for a little clarity on this, what would be required now? So the event's going to happen on July.
Are you asking me?
It's kind of, I'm just,
Sure. I mean, we would call our insurance company and say, hey, I guess we need to renew early.
I
and they would
understand you
send
haven't
that-
paid and you don't have insurance
Yeah.
yet, so that's clear. I'm just trying to understand, I guess, perhaps Jennifer can help me with this. What is required now if they want those permits to be issued?
Right now, and what I put in the letter to the Sandpoint Independence Day group is payment of the permit fee, and I believe that we invoice that. We would need current insurance certificate, and right now, according to the rules regarding larger events, they have to submit a safety health precaution plan to Panhandle Health District. We just require a copy that was submitted, and then we're issuing permits.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor, I have a question also.
Yeah.
So what would prevent you guys from still doing the fireworks in the Traverse Park? Like, regardless of, and this is just at my own curiosity.
Yeah.
We could all have opinions on, we didn't like how the event got split. But we still want, I still want the entirety of the event. I don't necessarily care who is in charge of one thing, all things, some things.
Right.
Are you still, there's gonna be a decision tonight. Is there any obstruction from you and your group this year still putting on the fireworks and the Traverse Family Fun Day?
At this point, no.
And you're willing to do that?
Yeah.
You want that? You want to do that? Okay, because I'll step aside and say my opinion is,
Yeah.
it's the best fireworks display I've ever seen. You guys did a fantastic job. And I want to see you guys, if the event were to be split for one reason or another, I wouldn't want the Lions Club to have the fireworks. You guys did great with the fireworks. I participated in the event and if you'd have me, I'd volunteer to do it again. You guys did a great job. So regardless of whether we have some issues with this language, which I get, we're not going to interpret. You guys did a great job. I want you to do another great job. Some in good faith, some in partnership, some in look, you guys, we did the event great last year. We fulfilled our duties. We're here to do it again. I'm going to leave it up to the festival, not festival. I want to hear from the Lions Club and have the Lions Club kind of offer up hey, you guys, we know that this was an awkward year. You guys did great. Here we go. Let's partner better. So what I guess in closing, what I want to do is not dissuade you.
Yes.
From, I know your toes are on the line. What I want you to do is not be dissuaded that you may not get necessarily everything that you want. But man, I tell you what, you guys are hitting home runs.
Yeah, I appreciate it.
In response to that real quick, I would like to make everybody clear of this too. So the parade itself is pretty much self-sustaining, if you will. The cost of the parade is counterbalanced by the entry fee of the parade. Okay, so it doesn't take a whole lot of money to do the parade. On the other hand, the fireworks show, which is what we were graciously allowed to keep, is a $20,000 event. All right, Lions Club, as stated earlier, has been doing this for 60 years. They're a well-established group. They've got a lot better fundraising than we do and everything else. Not saying that I agree with splitting it, but if it were to be splitted, it seems only right and proper that you would take a large organization that has the money, the financial backing, the ways of raising that kind of money, and task them with doing the fireworks show instead of the new kid on the block right out the gate. So if there was a decision and you guys were dead set on splitting it, again, my question was, how was that decision made to split it the way it was? Because it sure wasn't financially.
And it sure wasn't asked of us. And as much as I love your compliments about the fireworks show, and we think it was an amazing show, all it was a matter of us writing another check for $5 extra grand. I mean, that,
There is.
I'll be honest with you, there's nothing to the fireworks show. You talk to the pyrotechnics company, say, you know what, we want to make it bigger and better. How do you do that? Make the grand finale amazing. How much does it cost? 4,500 more? There's your check. So I mean, the fireworks show is kind of, it's uneventful. We're not even there. I mean, we're there watching, but we're not involved in it. Some guy shows up, then he leaves. We don't even meet him. I mean, it's like, that's why the parade's important. That's what we want to do for the community. It's the parade and the day in Traverse Park. Anybody can write a check for the fireworks. The city can write a check for the fireworks. They don't need us.
Thank you.
So with the, yeah, I guess I didn't realize the parade is self-sustaining essentially. With our policy not talking about splitting, is that something we can do? I mean, we were talking about splitting it, is that okay? That's fine for the city to make that decision?
The parades are, so any of our special events are issued administratively.
Yeah.
The administrative policy was on file and approved by the city council, but our special event permitting is an administrative action. We can also deny a special event because they don't provide adequate security.
Mhm.
So we can deny an event because they did not perform well the prior year. We can deny an event because they want to have an event and it conflicts with too much activity in town. We've had that where people have wanted events on First Avenue or on Cedar
Right.
Street or in peak season, and we deny it based on that. So again, the intent with splitting with it was not to put more of a financial burden on one organization versus the other. There was no consideration given to that. It was looking at the event both groups wanted that seemed to be the premier event was the parade. And because that premier event was a Lions Club event and it was permitted over to the Lions, it was trying to look for a larger event and to give something to both parties. There was never an intent administratively. We never wanted to be in the position of having to pick sides between two organizations. That's why the decision was made. Well, first, we will give the other organization, Sandpoint Independence Day, the opportunity for both the fireworks as well as the festival in the park. Lions had communicated they wanted the fireworks, so we could easily just go back and amend that into the Lions Club permits. So we don't always permit necessarily everything that an organization asks for in their permit, nor the location, nor the activity itself.
Understood. Yeah, I want to be clear. I don't believe the city had any intention of putting a financial burden on one over the other. That's definitely not a.
Can I comment on that? Just so we're talking about administrative decisions here. At some point, the mayor got involved. So now it's not really an administrative decision anymore. When we were denied our first denial in an email, which should be, I believe, in an attachment you have,
Yeah, we saw
it
it.
says the mayor and I decided. Hey, you guys know who we are, we know who the mayor is, and we don't really connect politically or on pretty much anything. So when the mayor decision came in, and all of a sudden it was the mayor and not the mayor and the council, I mean, that's the reason for the council. And so we were kind of like, well, I mean,
With all due respect, mayor is administrative. Just,
but typically when the mayor, right, I mean, isn't,
no, so just to, I don't, legally,
The chief administrative officer of the city is the mayor.
not to take away
Certain
from,
responsibilities to the city administrator, so that's your administrator.
gotcha.
yeah, just to be clear, from what I understood, mayor role.
So-
It was administrative.
Yeah, thank you. I just want to be, make sure we're all on the same page on that.
And, and again, it would have been nice to, it seems like the Lions Club had a lot more contact with the city on what they wanted and what was wanted and than we got. And, we made a very generous offer to the Lions Club in our minds to be the sole sponsor of the parade. Their name would be, it would be the Sandpoint Independence Day Parade by the Sandpoint Lions Club on every flyer, every press release. We offered them to have their volunteers be the volunteers for the entire parade route. They could have their Lions Club t-shirts. We would be in the background, it'd be all of them, and be the grand marshal of the parade.
Right. So that was one of my other questions, were after several attempts to do so, we did finally get a great meeting with the Lions Club on Monday, March 29, 2021, and invited them to sponsor, volunteer, and grand marshal the parade. They seemed happy with that proposal.
Correct.
Is that what you're referring to?
That is exactly what I'm referring to.
Because that seems very positive to me.
Me
That
too.
seems like,
It was a nice meeting.
It was a
Yeah.
good meeting, we had a good meeting, and then now that the permit got issued to them, it seems like we
and would
did.
that have all the financial burden been on you guys? You would have
Yeah.
granted them the sponsor of the Lions Club.
I don't understand.
Well,
So that, this would mean that you get the permit.
Mhm.
Sponsored by the Lions Club, or they would be the, whatever you called it. The-
yes,
Yeah,
just as our
Yeah.
fireworks show last
Yeah,
year.
but you would hold the permit, they would get the clout, if you will, to a certain degree,
yeah,
and we wouldn't be meeting here today.
exactly.
So what happened there, and that's what's hard, is I can't hear the Lions Club.
They
So
are here.
they weren't allowed.
Yeah,
they weren't
Yeah,
allowed
that's
to
where,
take it.
okay,
them.
yeah.
They weren't allowed to take it to their meeting
Right.
because the decision was made prior to them taking it to their meeting.
Right.
Mr. Mayor,
Yeah.
if I could, I received an email and a phone call from the Lions Club the next day that said that they had met and made a decision. I heard from both the president and the Lions officer in charge of special events. That's where the decision got made is, and I specifically asked, my understanding was the Lions Club was not going to meet as a membership until the following Monday. And what Rhonda indicated is they were able to meet earlier, so we had a decision from the Lions Club the next day that, again, that there was not an agreement between the two parties. That's when the decision got made. It wasn't in advance of the Lions Club meeting. We had heard communication. I spoke with Rhonda directly.
Can we hear from the
From the
Lions
Lions
Club?
Club now.
We sure can. Are there any other questions for the appellant? Okay, thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Rhonda, are you here? Could you please come forward? And could you, for the record, please state your name and what?
My name's
what your role is?
Rhonda Whitaker, and I'm the president of the Sandpoint Lions Club.
Thank you.
And first of all, I would like to thank council and mayor and staff for always supporting all that the Sandpoint Lions Club does for the community. We hold lots of different events, and we're really proud to be able to do that. And we are a small club, but we're mighty, and we're growing slowly, and we're excited about that. So in saying that, I haven't been asked by the club's board of directors to read to you this evening a statement explaining the position of our club on the 2021 Sandpoint Independence Day celebration, which in hearing previous comment seems to be kind of a CF right now. In 1953, 68 years ago, the Sandpoint Lions Club sponsored our first Independence Day parade here in town. Since that time, we sponsored parades, fireworks, children's games, and many other activities every year without interruption until last year. In May of 2020, after careful deliberation and advice from the Panhandle Health District and other medical health professionals about the potential of impacts of the COVID-19 pandemic on attendees, we voted to cancel the Lions Club 2020 Independence Day celebration. In our press release to the city and the public, we said, we are aware this decision is disappointing. However, the health and safety of the community we serve is our primary concern, and we look forward to celebrating the 4th of July with our community next year. A fun, inclusive, and memorable Independence Day celebration continues to be very important to the Sandpoint Lions Club. Our members want you to know that our first priority is to make the 2021 celebration the best it has ever been. On April 1st, Jennifer Stapleton sent us and another organization
an email advising that the city had received 2 special event applications for the 2021 celebration. She said that the city would issue a permit for the parade to the Lions Club, which it has done, and a permit to another club for the fireworks and other events. And we want to thank you for issuing the 2021 parade permit to the Lions Club. Rest assured, we are working to make this year's parade a success. Our club will work with any other group to assist in making Sandpoint celebration a wonderful experience for all the folks who come to our community that day. The board of directors has also asked me to reiterate that the Sandpoint Lions Club stands ready to help others or to be solely responsible for the fireworks and other activities as needed. We're here to serve the community as we have done every year since our founding in 1953. Our members and I want the 2021 Sandpoint Independence Day celebration to be a resounding success. And that's the end of the board's statement to council. I don't feel that the club is into or wants to be a part of a political agenda or a bashing at all. We're very proud of the parade and the fireworks that we put on in the past, and we're hoping you'll allow us to continue to do so.
Thank you. Council, any questions for Ms. Pfeiffer? Yeah, please go
Good
ahead.
question. Is Janice Reeder still the vice president?
She is, and at the time she was the event coordinator. It's a little frustrating to hear some of what I heard today.
And can you comment on that?
Well, we are a club and we decide on things as a club. And I would think that any other organization that had any question about what the club's doing could, appeal to the club. I mean, we would welcome another club to come in and talk to us about, what was happening and what was said to them. But that didn't happen for what reason, I don't know. I'm not the event. I was put in this position because of all of the miscommunication and everything that was going on. So they put me in charge of getting together a meeting with the Sandpoint Independence Day nonprofit, which I did, and we did have a very good meeting. But after the meeting, I realized that the nonprofit didn't actually have a permit in place yet. And they were asking us to be involved in an event that they didn't have a permit for. But I was able to hold a special meeting with the club and get their idea on what they thought of the offer. And the offer was that they would make us grand marshal, they would allow us to volunteer where needed, and then they wanted us to purchase a sponsorship for the 4th of July. And in doing this event for 68 years and having the funds to be able to do it, the club decided that they would prefer to do that. Now, we did talk in that meeting with the other club about the idea of splitting up the event without having to have the city involved and just us working together and doing that. And they weren't agreeable in that. So they gave us the offer.
One last question. Do you recall any conversation saying how the club would be happy to pass this event on?
Absolutely.
As the
no.
president, you've never heard those comments?
I've never heard those comments. No, I'm surprised to hear those comments.
To be fair to the Sandpoint Independence Day, on your meeting on March 29th, I don't think they had a permit because they weren't given one. They weren't allowed. It was being sold out just.
Well, we didn't have one either, but we weren't aware that they didn't have one.
Right.
We weren't privy to that information. But I, being me, do the research and get the factual information, and I was told that they didn't have a permit yet. And so we just appreciate that that the administration gave value to what the Sandpoint Lions Club does and the history behind, you know, us doing the 4th of July parade. And in that value is, my understanding of the policy, evaluate doesn't mean first come, first serve. It means that you're gonna evaluate everything that's there. My suggestion would be say that there should be a deadline of some sort when an opinion would be given or a permit.
Yeah, I think as we move forward, we will be discussing things like that to give opportunity for other events to step in and do a better job, or I think competition is great, as I alluded to earlier.
Yeah.
More importantly than holding to tradition on who does what, I think more importantly is the policy here. And to be fair, it seems as though one organization was a lot more on top of things than the other and had their stuff together more than the other. And so more than tradition, I think it's more important who can put on a better event and who applied first. And hopefully this next coming year, we can have better policy, not only in this arena, but as the town grows, as the city grows, we can look at other policies as well.
I agree. I
appreciate your
would hate
time.
to- I would hate to see this to be a battle.
Yeah,
You know,
absolutely.
who's gonna push the button first? And traditionally, the city changed the way that they accept applications just last year. And so we fumbled with that too, but we were on the ready because we already had everything in place from the year before, and we just thought we understood that it would be rolled over. But we hadn't moved forward until we received the permit.
Any other questions for? Okay, thank you.
Okay,
Appreciate
thank
that.
you.
Does council have any additional questions at this point in general? You can be free to deliberate.
I can just say from personal experience, from being here, living here since '95. No offense to Lions Club or anything of that nature. I understand that they help a lot of people and I appreciate that. And they will continue to help a lot of people no matter whether they get the 4th of July or not. I believe that they'll continue to do a lot of work. But for me, I will say that this 4th of July never really crossed my mind. Lions Club or Independence Day Parade and SID. It was more what event got put on, what was better for the community, what was more exciting, how were the fireworks, celebrations like that. And I mean, I can easily say that last year was a better event in my opinion, and especially with the citizens getting involved. And I think that's part of the reason it was a lot better. You get the people involved, people donating their money to that specific event. And so I'm not of the opinion of, well, traditionally, historically, I think that our policies need to change. I think that's been made clear. But I think that I don't blame the SID group for hearing what they heard from the vice president, not saying that the rest of the Lions Club, I'm not saying that obviously they're not in agreement with that, but I don't blame SID for feeling the way they feel and feeling pushed around the way they feel pushed around. And especially with Mary Malone, who's no longer with us, saying, no, you don't need the money yet. I feel like they tried really hard with the information that they got and heard, and also in appliance with the very vague city code. I don't blame them for us being here tonight, for them fighting for that, especially with the lack of confusion, miscommunications, meetings, no meetings. It's unfortunate it has to come to this decision. It's going to affect everybody. It is somewhat politicized, whether we like it or not. But that's why we are here, to make that decision. And given with the evidence here, with the presentation, with the city code, with the audio from here and from Janice, those types of things, I'm compelled as a council member that I feel like I'm upholding what's right, and that would be this year giving the permit to the Sandpoint Independence Day Parade group, and us really figuring out how we're going to process and proceed with further events, and making it very clear, maybe not just first come, first serve, but evaluation where it does become a council decision where we can evaluate what's best for the community, a group elected by the people, and decide which group can produce the best opportunity for our community, not just a historical event. Even if it's next year, it's somebody has a way better plan than the Independence Parade. That's one reason we get elected, and I understand right now it's an administrative decision to a certain degree, but I'd like to see more thought put into it, allowing competition, allowing other parties to put on something better for the community, for businesses, for the people. So that is where I stand tonight.
So Councilman, you would, in that recommendation, you suggest rescinding the permit that went to the Lions Club?
Yes, and giving it to Sandpoint Independence Day. If
Mr.
I'm allowed
Mayor,
to do so, but I
Just
see.
a point of clarification, I'm sorry.
No, please do. No, go ahead.
The decision that's before the council tonight is an appeal from the denial of the permit. So that's the action item that you're to take. See,
Understood.
it's not,
To make
To-
it work.
Okay,
it's not
yeah.
to choose one over the other. That's your decision.
Thank you.
And so, since we're having some commentary, yeah, I mean, last year was last year. And I can completely understand the frustration on all parties. And I appreciate how organized and put together a group that is incorporated in 1 year, and how clear this was. And yeah, there's some of the things that we heard today, that's really unfortunate. So it sounds like there's a club that also needs to have some other conversations with their members. Along with that, I very clearly understand with the statements from the city administration, or however it was, that they were doing their very best to put on a fantastic event. So it would be helpful to have it very clear as to what is in front of us, because how we got here is muddled. The SID group very clearly understand their frustration. And the Lions Club, you know, although that they've done it for quite a few years, SID is very organized in their argument here tonight.
So, Mr. Mayor, I move a motion that the city council deny the decision of the city administrator and deny the application from Sandpoint Independence Day Incorporated.
Second.
Been moved and seconded to deny the denial of the application by Sandpoint Independence Day Incorporated. Is there any discussion?
Second, I need to get that clear. So
I'm not.
Yeah.
we've been here before.
The decision tonight would be to affirm the city administrator / mayor's decision to deny the Independence Day parade. What I'm saying is, I want to deny their affirmation of the denial.
Deny
Yeah.
the-
Let's let the lawyer talk, so I guess.
Let's stop for a second. So the decision before the council is to affirm the city administration's denial of the application. That should be the motion. And if someone seconds it, then you take a vote at that point in time.
Well, he's making the opposite motion.
I understand, but I think for clarity's sake, that's what's before the council, is whether or not to,
Oh, okay.
whether or not to.
Don't want to affirm it, then vote no.
Yeah, if you don't
Okay,
want
so-
to do it, then you can vote no.
So with that motion before us, say that.
Script it, please.
If that passes, then what's the action after that? So if
Good question.
So the denial is then removed.
That would be a final decision. If it doesn't pass, you can entertain another motion. But that would be the action to take.
Do you mean what happens with the permit after this? Yes,
Administrative.
administrative.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's what I'm trying to figure out. So if
I got you.
hypothetically speaking, that passed, and so the city administration's decision in denying it did not pass. Sorry.
I know what you're saying. I got you.
Patiently, that's why we-
If the permit was no longer
If the
denied,
thank you.
what's gonna happen
What happens
administratively?
next?
What-
Because it's still an administrative decision. So now
Yeah,
their
it would-
permit is no longer denied, yet it's still an administrative decision.
It would revert to administrative decision.
They can deny it again, so they
Fine.
choose.
Okay, great. Thank you for clarifying.
But I think what they wanted tonight was to hear from the council. Good question.
I still don't understand. Okay.
So- So Councilman Spiro, if you're willing to rescind that motion, I'll
Yes, please.
redo the motion.
I rescind it. Yeah.
And the second is friendly to that? I would entertain a motion that the city council affirm the decision of the city administration in denying the application from Sandpoint Independent State Incorporated. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Is there a second? It's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion?
I'd just like to mention, I think Joel made some really relevant points as well as Andy and London's discussion. I do think there needs to be some, take a hard look at our code and future policies that are administratively administered. And it's really unfortunate, that we are put in this position today. I was, it's exciting that there's so many people passionate about the 4th of July in this community, of the Lions Club as well as Sid. And, that our community had the opportunity to celebrate in a public way, if the public chose to celebrate last year. And I appreciate all your efforts. It's just, it would be very disheartening if this decision went in a direction that either one of the parties was upset at, that would remove any of those activities from this year's celebration. So I'm just hopeful that no matter what the decision is, that both parties involved will still be willing and able to step up to the plate to bring those activities to the community.
Yeah.
I would just concur with Ms. Sharon's comments in that I think that we need to work on policy so that we don't have these difficulties. And then in some ways, I'm very saddened that this had to come before us and that the two groups could not come to a decision on their own to work it out and so that it worked for both parties. And that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Great. Any further discussion?
Yeah, before I vote, I will say that there was, in all the confusion, that I believe that Sid and their view of our city code and the application, that they believe they had the permit, that they were going to get it. And I believe that their offer was very generous to the Lions Club. And I think had the Lions Club taken that up, we would not be here tonight. We'd have a very great 4th of July. So I would, and as we vote tonight, say we deny this affirmation, I really hope that that they can work together in that regard. I feel like Sid's offer was very generous, and that would be one reason of my vote tonight.
Okay, so to reiterate, this is the motion is to affirm the decision of the city administration in denying the application from Sandpoint Independent State Incorporated. So this will be a roll call vote.
Councilman Groot,
Yes.
Councilwoman McAllister,
Yes.
Councilman Spuro,
No,
Councilman Darling,
No.
Councilwoman Sherman,
Yes.
Councilwoman Rule.
Yes.
Motion passes. Following introduction of the draft multimodal transportation master plan during our last two meetings in the public comment period, the final proposed plan is ready for adoption consideration. I will now yield the floor to Structure and Development Services Manager. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Good evening, council members. Tonight's request to consider the adoption of the final multimodal transportation master plan represents a significant milestone for our city. The plan is our very first comprehensive and Sandpoint specific transportation planning document. The significance of having a complete and strategic, as well as hopefully a practical list of needs is really intended to serve as our roadmap. And I think being clear on where we want to go really helps for us to enhance the probability of actually getting there. Like everyone is exiting.
Don't take it personally.
Extremely
Here, let me
unusual.
throw this at you.
I might catch it this time.
You're equally as important.
So on the line with us this evening, and I appreciate your patience, Mandy and Preston, are our consultants, Mandy Roberts with OTAC, as well as Preston Stinger with Baron Pierce. And they are here to help answer any questions that you may have or take a deeper dive. So the plan represents specifically where and how we intend to resolve issues. That's basically it in a nutshell. It also serves to inform our future budget decisions, as well as better position us for outside dollars. With that in mind, section 2, as I trust you all have reviewed, summarizes the wide range of opportunities that we went through over the last 18 months for public engagement. And then it also represents, I would say, a complete list, this plan does, of all the issues and concerns that we've heard to date. So staff first introduced this draft plan on April 7th. And then subsequently came back on April 21st with the second half of the plan, as you're all well aware. Following the publication of that plan, we did receive a number of very thoughtful comments and questions and concerns. And I just wanted to spend a little bit of time this evening kind of highlighting some of that feedback and offering an explanation in response to it. And then we'll open it up for any questions that you have. So first, one of the first comments that we received is that the plan is quite lengthy and rather technical. And I think that's very fair. It is. There's a lot of data there, and unless it's something that you live and breathe every day, it is a technical document. So as a result, we added an executive summary. So section 1 now kind of tries to recap some of the key points that are provided in the other sections. So hopefully that's a little bit more user friendly. We also received feedback that some of the concepts were a little bit difficult to read in the initial draft. So we pulled all of those concept plans out and put them into a single appendix. So if you just wanted to view those and zoom in a little bit better, you have that ability. And I think it was more successful in that aspect. If you click in that regard now, you're able to actually print just the concepts. And we also heard quite a bit of feedback regarding past efforts and past plans. And I do want to spend a bit of time on that for a second, because I think it's essential to the conversation. We spend a lot of time making decisions over a number of years, considering various data points that we have. And there's been a significant amount of transportation planning over our city's history. And I want to provide some examples, because our executive summary and throughout the document, we note that we tried our best to build upon those past efforts. And those words truly were not hollow. So I'm going to list a few of the elements in which we built upon. First of all, the visions, goals, and objectives that are included in this plan not only represent the city's current vision and the community's feedback that we heard through those engagement opportunities, but it also, it was shaped from, and our initial look and drafts initiated from our comprehensive plan, our 2009 comprehensive plan, also our existing urban area and transportation plan, as well as one of the more recent documents, which is our US 200 corridor study that was conducted. And it included an extensive amount of public engagement that was of value that was carried forward into this plan. Some of those elements include the need for wayfinding. Obviously, we've had many conversations in here about how it can be a little bit challenging, whether you're a pedestrian, a bicycle, or a truck trying to navigate through our city. And so we've carried forward a recommendation that that is something we really need to focus on going forward and fund. We've heard in prior plans that we need to take a closer look at the Boyer intersection, and we've done that and tried to do better than what was previously proposed in past years. We also directly took the Ontario realignment that was in the US 200 study. That was a solid plan, and that directly was carried forward. We also carried forward the Baldy extension, albeit it's a slightly modified version. It doesn't include extending Ebbett Way as was previously included, but it does provide for that Baldy extension that we've spent quite a bit of time discussing in here. It also carries forward regional collaboration, as well as multi-jurisdictional collaboration. It carries forward the recommendation for a level of service, which is how we grade our intersections of D. So on a scale of A, B, C, D, E, F, we're recommending D, so as not to be too car centric. Those are on city streets. We do not have an ability to control what the Idaho Transportation Department accepts as a level of service. Theirs is still a C, but we're representing in this plan a recommendation for a D. We spent a lot of time, and you're welcome to certainly ask Preston or Mandy about this in more detail. We spent a lot of time around that conversation, making sure we were thoughtful in that recommendation. And much of the feedback and conclusion was that in an urban environment like ours, it's okay to have a slightly lower acceptable level of service than you would see on, say, a highway. So it's okay that you might have to wait a little bit longer. We don't want you to wait too long, but it's trying to find that balance. We also carried forward the Explore Sandpoint routes, the bicycle routes that have been well established over the years, and many kids have been educated on how to use those routes. Those are included. We've just added some. We also have included the superior solutions that were provided in the Downtown Streets Guide. And we reviewed past resolutions. There are a slew of them, and carried forward the complete streets concept, recognizing that even though that's a 11-year now old resolution, it still holds very much true today and represents the overall concept of having a multimodal plan that serves all users in all modes. So I wanted to spend a bit of time on, yes, we did include past planning efforts because they do have value. Also, we received a question about a north-south multi-use path that really would provide additional connectivity from where our current community trail at Larch terminates and carry that forward north closer to the Popsicle Bridge. We've heard that from a couple folks, and I just wanted to offer you a brief explanation that we spent a considerable amount of time weighing the pros and cons associated with that. And back to the review of where do we want our arterials to be. It's not that you couldn't, it's trying to balance the efficiencies of how do we provide an efficient route. Typically the most efficient route is a highway from a truly a motorist perspective. Obviously, highways are not excellent locations for bicycles, especially when they're 3 to 4 lanes. So what are the alternative routes for a bicyclist trying to get north to, say, Ponderay or Kootenai and some of our sister neighborhoods? And so looking at the layout of those arterial bike routes, if you will, and looking at the spacing and options, and then how do we stretch our dollars as far as we can. The conclusion was that it was more efficient to further refine and make our existing routes more user-friendly than it would be to invest the dollars necessary to procure right-of-way, as well as construct a pathway underneath an existing bridge that is already substandard, as well as the potential conflicts that we anticipate with the Baldy extension project. And so really trying to factor in those various aspects and look at all the pros and cons. I think it would, our conclusion was it would be fantastic to include. We're also trying to hold true to providing solutions that are as practical as we think are reasonable. So the plan doesn't represent every single idea that was proposed throughout this planning process. It really represents those that were supported by the data and the analysis that went into it. We also have heard quite a bit of feedback about Ontario and how narrow it is, especially given some of the new developments out in that direction. We do have an identified capital improvement project specific for widening that road. It would widen to the north is where we have the available right of way to do so. So the developments that recently went in are on the south side of Ontario, and that curb alignment anticipated future widening to the north. It was not an oversight, and that's why we've included a project to fund widening that road that's substandard. Widening it would include and provide for hopefully some dedicated bike lanes and connectivity from a sidewalk perspective, recognizing that Ontario is a key route to the west side. We also have heard a question regarding Boyer Avenue, specifically between Larch and Highway 2, and the inclusion of that in the plan to be a truck route. So I am going to take a breath from talking and actually turn that one over to Preston Preston, do you mind speaking to that question that we received? Yeah, sure, no problem. Good evening, everyone. A couple quick thoughts about that comment. And if you take a little step back and just think about the network in general, your transportation network, and we like to think about it in layers. So you've got your vehicle network layer, and you've got your pedestrian network layer, and your bicycle network layer, and your transit network layer, and your truck network layer. So there's all these different transportation modes that we like to accommodate in our overall network in the city. And so in this case, we're talking about the truck network or freight network, and what is the best way for them to get around in this city that is not only efficient for them, but also safe for the other individuals utilizing those areas. So with that, we've got Division and Boyer and Fifth Avenue that are both in question here, or at least are both all have relevancy to this question or comment. And these are principal arterials, or I should say minor arterials. Highway 2 or Fifth Avenue is a principal arterial, and Boyer and Division are minor arterials as far as classification goes, which means they are intended to carry more traffic and can be at various speeds, and should be able to accommodate all types of vehicles on those roadways, given their classification of arterials. And that's the way that it is currently situated, and that's why those trucks are where they are today. And there are not good and safe and efficient alternative routes to get those trucks to the main highways, being US 95 and Highway 2 in this case. So that's the way those truck routes are today. And we've got these plans to implement in either the short range or long range plan to provide some implementation to better accommodate all modes of transportation on Division, and to eventually move trucks off of that road and reduce that classification down to a collector when those things are in place, and make that a more walkable, bikeable route, given the school and the other context in that area, schools and context in that area. So thinking about Baldy is also a minor arterial, and it's got appropriate right-of-way width to accommodate trucks. It does go through some residential areas as it sits today, but it has been operating in that way. And by changing truck routes in its current condition as it sits today, could have some unintended consequences, and that being where would those trucks go? If we took the truck route off of that, you would likely see more on Fifth Avenue, which is not a bad thing. You could also see more on Division Avenue, which is not a good thing, given what we just talked about. And our future plans are to make sure that that is not a truck route into the future. The other thing to keep in mind here is there is on-street parking on the west side in some areas where there is the width to do so, some parking allowed on Boyer. But with that, it is taking up about half of the bike lane that is striped there. And Amanda, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe with some restriping plans coming up this season, that will be restriped to accommodate a full-sized bike lane, and parking would be restricted in those areas because right now it's not really conducive to good bicycle travel with that current condition of people parking on top of the bike lane because of the reduced width there. So maybe that's where I'll stop for a second. Amanda, is there anything else you want me to cover on that, or the group there? Sorry for the dog. No, thank you, Preston. We appreciate that explanation. And I just have a few other comments that we received I wanted to bring to your attention, and then we'll open it up for additional questions. We received a question, multiple actually, about our investment in the pedestrian priority network improvement. We do have some line items in the capital improvement plan that include some dollar values. Those are generally laid out into short-term improvements, midterm, and then long-term. All three of those each representing 5-year increments. And so from an annual budget perspective, the pedestrian amount was proposed at $50,000 times 5 years is $250,000 for the short-term improvements. That does not represent all the investment in pedestrian routes. That would be true for our proposed bicycle annual investment, as well as the accessibility investment. Every one of the capital improvement projects that's provided in the plan includes components for each one of those modes. So it's not just saying that this is the dollar value that we'd like to spend on pedestrians. The whole plan is investing in pedestrians, bicycles, and for accessibility as well. And so I just wanted to make that clarification, bring that to your attention. And then also, we received a question that I respect and would like to take a chance to clarify, and that is, why just concepts? Why not provide a complete design solution in this document so that we can move forward with implementation? That's a great question. The answer to it is we first need to agree upon what is it we want to design. So that's the intent of this plan, is where do we want to focus our efforts? Because the list of wants is very long. And so having some direction upon or about this is where the focus should be, that's step one. The next step is from that list, okay, now we're going to start the design effort. That design effort will include for every project additional, not only engineering, but additional public engagement. These are truly concepts in nature that will guide those decisions. And so, for example, if we were going to have a conversation about widening Ontario, we would certainly discuss that with the adjacent neighbors, just like we would any project, just like we did with the downtown streets projects, right? So this is not the end of engagement, it is truly the beginning. And then on a final note, this plan intentionally does not include street design standards. So street design standards were historically included in our urban area transportation plan. So we kind of mixed the planning document with more of a specifications technical component. And so we've separated those two things out. We are working on the design standards and anticipate bringing those forward to you in June for your consideration. But this is our needs and future vision. What we're doing with our design standards is more the technical. How are we going to build it? The widths and the different criteria that go into some of those design decisions. So look forward to that coming in the future. And I did want to let you know as well that we are happy to have a lengthy conversation this evening. I want this presentation to be the most useful for you as possible. And I also wanted to bring to your attention that we presented to Planning and Zoning last night, and they had some really thoughtful feedback. We spent approximately 2 hours taking a really good deep dive into the plan. If you haven't watched that recording, I encourage you to do so. Although they did not take an action, we didn't request an action or a recommendation from Planning and Zoning. I think it's fair to say the general consensus was very positive. And so we really appreciate the time that they put into reviewing that document, and appreciate all the time that you, as well as the public, has been patient and given us their candid feedback throughout this process. So with that, Mr. Mayor, I'll open it up to
Okay,
questions.
great. Does council have any questions?
I have a question. See, I marked everything.
Yes, you did. I would expect nothing less.
No. So I know that it was mentioned about taking us to level of service D, and so in section 3, it talks about starting to maintain a level C. Is that simply because of the amount of traffic that we're gonna need to lower it to be? Or
Which version are you working off of?
I don't know, I just printed it off,
It's okay. There should be a date at the top.
April 7th.
Perfect. That's a good answer. So I have the final May 5th version, and that it was a typo. So I apologize. Really good attention to detail. I joked with Planning and Zoning that was our malarkey to make sure people were paying attention. I made that
Kate's
up.
paying
I don't know if you get them all.
She was paying attention. It is a D in the final version.
Okay, I just remember Preston talking about D, and I read it and I'm like, wait, I thought, yeah, okay, thank you.
You're
Thank for the
You get an A.
information.
You do.
There were a number of individuals who pointed that out. Wait, what?
You all get A's.
Everybody gets it.
Any other
That,
questions? That's it?
I mean, yeah.
That's a mic drop right there.
That's it, right,
Go ahead.
yeah.
Yes.
So, I spent over 3 hours with Amanda and our two consultants talking about a lot of different things, because
sidewalks are what originally got me landed on the council. I also spent time on the planning commission, so I learned a lot about design. And I read technical books on that. So I also wanted to point out, I know that the council probably all received the letter, but I'd like to read that into the record. I've also been part of the Trail Mix Committee, but Trails Mix kind of went to the wayside a little bit during COVID, and then my schedule's gotten so busy that I haven't been able to go back to the meetings yet. But on behalf of the Trail Mix Committee, we want to express our interest in the city of Sandpoint's multimodal plan and share some insights that could benefit Sandpoint and surrounding communities. The Trail Mix Committee is a collaborative of federal, state, and county agencies, along with many recreational trail organizations, including the Ponderay Peddlers, North Idaho Trails Coalition, Phoenixview Land Trust, and Idaho Trails Association, among other recreational groups. As a committee, we seek to promote trails and trail development that benefits the vitality of the local community and create access to the recreational opportunities that surround us. We have worked together to create a county-wide trails plan in 2016 that focuses on connecting people in the greater Sandpoint area to their waterways, public lands, and to each other through a variety of trail systems throughout Bonner County. The city of Sandpoint has been a part of Bonner County Trails Plan and has representatives participate in the trail mix planning efforts, including the mayor, the parks director, the planning director, and city council members. At our most recent meeting, trail mix members included representatives from the county, United States Forest Service, Phoenixview Land Trust, Friends of Scotchman's Peaks, Wilderness, BCAT, Ponderay Peddlers, Idaho Trails Association, Connecticut Native Plant Society, Friends of the Ponderay Bay Trail, the Idaho Club Trails Committee, Schweitzer Trails, 9B Trails, and the Mickinick Trail. The group unanimously endorsed including the extension of the Dover pathway along Sand Creek to the Popsicle Bridge as part of the multimodal plan. This concept is attached and is listed as Creekside West Alternative and the Bonner County Trails Plan. We hope it is not too late to include this conceptual trail extension in the multimodal plan, as it represents an important link in our overall community trail system. We thank you for your time and look forward to your response. And I think all of you got that. And if you didn't pull up the visual on it, I know that that was also sent to Jennifer and Amanda. So I just wanted to put that out there to all of you. I know that Amanda has just now said in the beginning of her presentation that we kind of had to balance things out. But in this sense, I would like to, we all sort of think of trails for, recreational. We have a lot of nice paths here. And I would like to bring up socioeconomic equity issues. And so I'm not thinking of the trail that, I've got a Saturday afternoon, I'm going to tool along, maybe I bump into the neighbors and their toddlers. I'm thinking about the guy who's stuck out there on Fifth Avenue with 4 grocery bags hanging off his handlebars, trying to get back to Ponderay to his lower income, housing, because he can't afford to live here. So I think we all quite often see these people on the side of the road. Their tires are under pressure. Their bikes are many, many years old. They don't have helmets. They're not out there for the recreation. And so I think that I would like to take this opportunity to point out that there are a lot of other people in our community that don't have the choice because they don't have a car. That's the way they're getting to and from. And so although Amanda has given me multiple explanations about why or we shouldn't or we can't, again, this is only a plan. It doesn't mean it's going to happen. But if it never goes on the plan, then it never, ever happens. And if there's grant money out there and the Baldy Mountain extension goes through, then maybe we have an opportunity where we give so many of these people a safer way to commute. Because they're not going to ride out of their way, and they're not going to ride down to the Popsicle Bridge and back up that massive hill. And they're also not going to go from Safeway and meander back down to City Beach to get onto the path to get out there again. Because we all know we take the shortest path when we're headed somewhere. And that's probably why a lot of us get in our cars to drive. So I I would encourage the council to encourage staff to include that in the final version, whether or not that takes tabling this so that that can happen. And us approving this at our next meeting. I would be open to that consideration. I know it was stated in this to reconnect into the Popsicle Bridge. I would even put out there that we have a connection that stays more level and stays more on a commuting type of basis next to the Fifth Avenue or where Highway 2 crosses the creek there. And then just a couple other things that I'd like to point out that I think are great inside the plan. On page 20, to continue to enhance the walkability, bikeability of not only the downtown, but also the entire community and improve walking and bicycling routes throughout the community. So again, that kind of plays to people who need these for commuting, not just for playing and enjoying. Continue to improve and maintain streetscapes for all modes of travel through adequate pedestrian crossing opportunities, landscaping and street furnishings, public art and amenities, and other design treatments that enhance human scale along street corridors. So this, I think, I don't know if this is still on page 20 of the document, but I wanted to point out to council that in changing what the Planning Commission put before us for the University of Idaho Extension property, we didn't really hold true to some of these things that were pulled out of our urban transportation plan. So I think as a council, we sort of did a disservice to the community, pulling away the landscaping that could have been created and could have been a more welcoming environment on Boyer Avenue. And then on page 68, it references some trend up to aggressive implementation. This trend would occur if all of the designated bicycle and pedestrian facilities are implemented with aggressive facilities and services for bicyclists, pedestrians, and transit riders. This will occur only if there are political champions and community members that have a strong appetite for ambitious bicycle and pedestrian plans and implementation of both the necessary land use and transportation components. So again, I'd just like to point out that today we are making a decision, and all communities make decisions about how they prioritize what in their communities. And that sign, as you drive over the Long Bridge into Sandpoint, that says Sandpoint is a walking community, is really, really important to me. And so it's all about us and what we prioritize. And if you go through different small places, for instance, if you go to Leavenworth, they prioritize something, and everybody knows what they prioritize. And I'm not saying we want to be like that here in Sandpoint, but I'm saying communities choose what they want to prioritize. And I agree that we do in some ways need to have a balanced approach, but this is our opportunity to decide how much of what we want. So that leads me to my final comment that I would like to make. The truck routes. The time frame for division. So I think it was long past overdue, probably 10 years ago, to get the trucks off. Is it an inconvenience for truckers? Will it make some traffic elsewhere? Yes, but we have 3 schools, a library, multiple churches. And I just feel like the time is long overdue. Amanda's told me encouraging news that, you know, if we were lucky, maybe we could have the Baldy Mountain extension happen within the next 5 years. But I really think it's time in the next 5 months to get the trucks off division. And although that might make Boyer and Fifth Avenue a little bit more crowded, I think it's time that that street gets restarted for the capacity that needs to carry, and what we need to prioritize there are our pedestrians and our children and getting to Traverse Park and all of those other things that I think are really super important to our community. Will it be an inconvenience for the trucks and for industry? Yes, it'll be an inconvenience, but guess what? It's an inconvenience for all of our children to have to ride near those logging trucks or the cement trucks or anything else. Will it add 5 or 10 minutes to their day? Yes, they're getting paid for their time, they're working. And I just think that we need to decide how we want to do that and when we want to do that. So I would push that we do that sooner rather than later before something tragic happens. As you know, we're building more tons and we're having more truck traffic going. So I would like to compliment our consultants. I think they've worked hard. They've put a lot of data in there. I've been pretty rough on them. I've had lots of questions, but again, also from Trails Mix Committee and from the executive director of the Ponderay Peddlers, he said there are so many great things in this plan. He's really thankful that this is going to happen, but he doesn't want a couple things to fall by the wayside. So those are my comments.
Thank you, Councilor. Appreciate those comments.
I'd say that if you see somebody riding their bike from Ponderay to Sandpoint to shop for groceries, just tell them to go to Walmart.
There you go.
Well, I kind of think that's a rude comment, Mr. Sparrow, because there are people that commute and that have backpacks on and to me, my impression, without being judgmental, that I'm not sure why they're going from where they're going, but it's their own choice and they're out there in the rain and the cold and the sleet. And I think the best that we can do for all of our members of our community is give them a way to be safe.
Yeah, one reason we have a spot bus, and I think it's disrespectful to say somebody's low income, they're a low income housing because they're on a bicycle. That's flat, but I'm glad we have, I guess, spot bus to help with that. You know, they can take that. I think that's great. So, thank you.
Any other questions, Council? Comments are also acceptable.
Thank you for all the hard work.
Yeah.
It's much appreciated. It's a great presentation. In the final document, I appreciate the executive summary very much.
I have one brief comment, Mr. Mayor. I just looking at this from 30,000 feet, third generation Sandpoint resident. The only thing that I still struggled and I've made a comment with is the First and Bridge long-term concept of shutting down First Avenue. Again, I'll just repeat myself that First Avenue is iconic to me. And so if all of you would just flatter me, I would like to make a motion tonight that would just ask that long-term concept be identified as an alternative concept. So it's just not rubber stamped into a multimodal plan. That's all I have.
Okay.
I agree. Agreed. Oh, can you make a motion? So,
I didn't make a
Oh, I
motion.
thought
I
you
was just
said-
explaining
okay,
tonight that I would either amend a motion or I would make the motion,
Okay.
explaining as to why I would do that.
Mr. Mayor,
Yeah.
would we be directing staff to make corrections as opposed to motions and then maybe
Yeah, I think
bring
that's,
this back at the next meeting? Or how would we go about any directive?
Great question. And I would pitch this to staff if, you know, it would make sense that if we do have suggested changes that maybe we give ourselves an opportunity, give staff an opportunity to come back with some revisions that then we could deliberate on, and the public would have a chance to really digest those and consider them.
Mr. Mayor?
Yeah.
If I may,
Please.
depending on what the changes are, for example, as suggested by Councilman Darling, if it is a notation relative to the long-term concept for downtown and making that an alternative choice, that's kind of an administrative change we could make to the plan, and council could approve it with that change, and with us then subject to the final document would include that. If there is a request, for example, and council votes on including the bike pathway connecting from Super One kind of along through the University Park Place property, that too is an image that we have, which could get included in the plan without having to come back to council with the plan. If there are other substantive changes that council would want to reconsider, then we would likely need to come back with a final version for council. But if it is addition and small edits to things that are already included in the plan, we could make those and then publish the final document.
Okay. And does it sound like from the feedback that you've heard tonight that those would qualify as just administrative?
Yes, to both of those
Okay.
items.
I'm fine with that. Is that agreeable to council?
Yes, but I would have a question about the truck route comments there.
Okay.
As far as what do we do about division, and would that still fall into that 1 to 5 year timeframe piece? Or
We would follow council direction. So whatever you decide, we will incorporate in the plan. I mean, we've made our recommendation. If you want to make an alternative recommendation, then we can do so. If your recommendation is that we need to review this in more depth and bring the truck route map back to you, and within the next year, adopt this one, and within the next year, bring a better analysis of what would be the consequences of closing division down to trucks right now. We could certainly do that. So we as staff are completely flexible and want to make sure you're comfortable. So
I would like to make that recommendation that we figure out how to make division safer, not in a 5-year timeframe, but within a year's timeframe. If we can figure out how to get the trucks off there.
Mr. Mayor, my suggestion would be that be incorporated into a motion that council votes on. And if council votes in that direction, that there is a staff direction to come back within 12 months with a plan for realignment of the truck routes, then that would be entered into the record, and staff would be back to council next spring with the analysis and a presentation on that specifically.
Okay.
Then I would move to realign the truck routes within the next year, and disposing of the division piece.
In conjunction with approval and acceptance of the
Mr. Mayor,
plan.
what would probably be most helpful for the record is if council moves to approve the plan, and then with any of these amendments.
Let's do that. So I would entertain a motion to approve the multimodal transportation master plan.
So,
So
second,
It's been moved and seconded. Amendments.
Amendments would be for the First and Bridge Church long-term concept, just to be identified as an alternative concept.
and are we gonna vote on each one of these pieces
No, I
individually?
think she would add,
Well, what if we want to vote separate?
get all the amendments
Yeah.
together.
Get the amendments together.
Get them all together? Okay.
I'm sorry, point of order, whose motion would it be then? Would it be John's motion and Deb's motion?
Betty
Yes.
asked for amendments, I'm sorry.
It's Deb's motion to approve, and John has requested amendment to that motion.
Or should second with an amendment.
So what if council doesn't agree with both amendments, but one of them?
Yeah, I think we're gonna have to separate these
Yeah.
out.
All right.
Yeah. that's
Okay.
kind of like-
So let's start with
John.
council rules. So, because you,
Well, John already.
John
made
already
it, I
is-
think. He already made it.
We're ready for
He's
a
on
vote that
first.
one.
He's on first.
okay, John, John, do you want to repeat that?
I would just ask that for my amended motion, that the First and Bridge long-term concept be identified as an alternative concept, please.
Any discussion on that? Okay, this will be roll call vote.
Councilwoman Sherman,
Yes.
Councilwoman Rule,
Yes.
Councilman Darling,
Yes.
Councilman Sprow,
Yes.
Councilwoman McAllister,
Yes.
Councilman Groot.
Yes.
All right, that amendment passes. Are there other amendments?
I would like to amend that we, direct, I don't know, do I direct staff? I don't even know how to make the amendment. Okay, So I would make an amendment to add the potential more commuter equity routes, continuing the Dover path along Fifth Avenue, to an appropriate crossing over Sand Creek as a potential pathway if funding at some point became available for such path.
I think that's clear. Is that clear?
Yes, if I may, Mr. Mayor,
Yeah.
repeat back. I think what I heard is you're directing staff to add the continuation of the Dover path north to an appropriate crossing over Sand Creek and incorporate it into our bicycle priority network plan.
Yes,
If funding's
so
available.
much better.
The whole plan is contingent upon funding. So is that
Yeah.
covered? Okay, I feel like that piece good.
No, no.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion on that?
Yeah, I do. Councilwoman Roy, I want to understand. I heard, so this discussion, the trucks moving them off division, is that correct?
No.
That is not- Okay, I just want to make sure that.
This is
I
the
didn't get that wrong.
additional path that I
Perfect.
read the piece from the Trails Mix Committee, that
Understood.
is all those bodies that thought that this would be an appropriate route. And it
Awesome.
was a piece that was, for the most part, originally included in the Bonner County Trails Plan that was brought in front of us, although I don't know that it was accepted as a master plan for us because it wasn't a city plan, but we did review it at some point.
Just making sure that.
Just two separate things.
Perfect.
And Mr. Mayor, I have represented that pathway on the screen here, just
Oh, thanks.
to help incorporate it into tonight's record.
Okay. All right, any further discussion? This will be a roll call vote.
Councilman Groot,
Yes.
Councilwoman McAllister,
Yes.
Councilman Sparrow,
Yes.
Councilman Darling,
Yes.
Councilwoman Rule,
Yes.
Councilwoman Sherman.
Yes.
Amendment passes. And the next one.
I would make an amendment to add that we have direct staff to reassess the truck route on Division and see if we can come up with a better alternative and bring it back to us within the next year's timeframe.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion on that one? Be roll call vote.
Councilman Sparrow,
No.
Councilwoman McAllister,
Yes.
Councilman Groot,
Yes.
Councilwoman Sherman,
Yes.
Councilwoman Rule,
Yes.
Councilman Darling.
Yes.
Amendment passes. And are there any other amendments? Okay, back to the main motion, adoption of the multimodal transportation master plan. It's been moved and seconded. This will be a roll call vote.
Councilman Sparrow,
Yes.
Councilman Darling,
Yes.
Councilwoman Sherman,
Yes.
Councilwoman Rule,
Thank you so much for all the hard work, for everybody involved and taking the extra time to speak with me. Yes.
Councilwoman McAllister,
Yes.
Councilman Groot.
Yes.
All right, motion passes and the plan is approved and adopted. Thank you, everybody. Congratulations.
Thanks for all the hard work and letting us do this real quick. That was
Yeah.
learning lots.
Thank you, Mandy and Preston.
Thanks, you guys.
Thanks. Next item, a proposal to award the sanitary sewer lateral pilot project construction contract to KG&T Septic Incorporated for rehab of approximately 100 sanitary sewer laterals in the pilot basin. I would like to take this opportunity to introduce the city's new construction manager, Holly Ellis, who will provide a presentation for us.
Thank you. Go ahead and share my screen. Just a minute. All right, I lost my Zoom. Okay. Again, this item is to regarding the request to authorize the construction contract
to the low bidder KP&T septic for the sanitary sewer pilot project. This project aligns with the city's commitment to reduce infiltration and inflow, known as I&I, within the city's sanitary sewer system. This project aims to reduce I&I observed at private laterals. The way that this is going to be done is by rehabbing approximately 100 sanitary sewer laterals within a pilot basin. After the completion of this project, the city will be able to collect a lot of data to better inform a citywide approach to reducing these types of flows. As you recall, earlier this fall, this project was bid. The bids were rejected due to irregularities, so the bid documents were revised. These revisions were to reduce any ambiguity that was in the project documents. The other major revision was in the rehab method. So now this rehab method is primarily trenchless, and this addresses any concerns with disturbance. We did rebid this project, and we did receive 2 bids. The bids are the lowest bid is by KP&T Septic. Their bid was within budget, and completion of this project is anticipated end of September of this year. And again, the recommendation is to, or our request is to award the sanitary sewer pilot project to our low bidder KP&T. That is the end of my report.
Okay, thank you. Any questions? All right, thanks for that presentation. I would entertain a motion to approve the resolution awarding the sanitary sewer lateral pilot project construction contract to KP&T Septic Incorporated. Is there a motion?
So moved. Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any discussion? So be a roll call vote.
Councilwoman Sherman,
Yes.
Councilwoman Rule,
Yes.
Councilwoman McAllister,
Yes.
Councilman Sprow,
Yes.
Councilman Groot,
Yes.
Councilman Darwin.
Yes.
Motion passes. At this time, council will consider approving the preliminary design for the Pine Street Sidewalk project and authorizing city staff to finalize construction documents and advertise for bids. We'll hear again from construction manager Holly Ellis, who will provide a presentation for us.
Thank you. Again, this Pine Street Sidewalk project, the item here is requesting authorization for staff to move forward with finalizing our construction and bid documents. I'm sharing my screen here, showing an image of the project, and I'll scroll down here to a more zoomed in version, which here's half the project. I can go through this later. The objective of this project is to provide a continuous pedestrian route along the north side of Pine Street from Boyer to Division. If you've walked along Pine Street, you may notice that some of the sidewalk is not continuous. You'll often find pedestrians walking in the roadway, perhaps moving from one side of the street to the other to find sidewalk or a safe place to walk. So one of the objectives of this project is to provide a continuous route, improve the safety, improve accessibility through the neighborhood. The improvements that this project is proposing is to infill sidewalk. Again, this will provide a continuous route along the north side. We'll also be replacing any damaged sidewalks. So this will be new in those very damaged sidewalk areas. We'll be repairing any uneven sidewalk by grinding any lips and preventing any trip hazards. And we'll also be installing ADA curb ramps at our intersections. Other impacts include if we're installing new sidewalk, we'll be replacing the curb, any impacted driveway aprons. Our new sidewalk alignment does conflict with existing trees. These trees will be removed. We did have a hazardous tree expert walk the alignment, and he was able to identify that some of these trees being removed are in poor condition, and he recommended that they're being removed, and they will be removed under this project. With that, it's probably a good time for me to scroll through our project here. You can see from Division to Washington Avenue, all of the blue sidewalk is our proposed new sidewalk, and we have some sidewalk in good shape here that's going to remain moving. along our project to the east, from Elliott to Ella, we have, again, along the north side. We are also showing our trees that are being removed. These trees will also be replaced with support from the homeowner to maintain the trees. From Ruth to Florence. And Forest to Boyer. So that was kind of a detailed look at what this project will look like. Looking at schedule, we're anticipating construction to last 4 to 8 weeks. It will be complete by the end of the summer. Funding is largely using federal dollars. We did receive a TAP grant, a Transportation Alternatives Program grant. This is administered through LTAP. Up to 93% of the project will be funded with this grant, and Sandpoint will be matching around 7%. Again, this project will improve accessibility and safety in the community, and that is the end of my report.
Thank you. Any questions from council?
I just have one question. I know that, it's Ella, just going east of Ella, that some of those houses are relatively close to the street front there and the driveways that lead up to the garages. Have we had discussions with those residents? Because I think it's gonna make it difficult for them to park sizable vehicles because they will end up parked across the sidewalk.
I don't know that we've had specific discussions. I know that homes are meant to have 25 feet from their garage to their sidewalk. So
Okay, so, all right.
Mr. Mayor.
Yeah.
Notices were sent out to all the neighbors along this stretch, and we did hold an open house. And so neighbors could come in and ask questions. So there has been specific outreach to the neighbors along the corridor. And I know even when we had applied for the grant a few years ago, a number of the neighbors along the corridor were aware that this was a project that had been funded and was coming down the pipeline.
Okay. I just-
Will there in fact be people that can't park in their driveways because of the setbacks?
They will be able to park in their driveways. I think the question is the size of vehicles that they may have that they're parking in the driveways. So
One specific.
One specific one that Andy knows that I'm
Yep.
thinking about.
There's no
Yeah,
parking
and we've
on
talked, so-
Pine, right?
there is parking along Pine on,
Depending where you're at, there is parking on that street.
yes,
But right there in particular?
yes.
Okay.
Yes. So the issue with the vehicle would be if somebody had a vehicle, an RV vehicle, an atypical vehicle that you would have in the driveway, that the vehicle may extend into the sidewalk area. And in that case, we do follow up with enforcement with our community resource officers.
Big truck to move.
Hopefully
Yes.
it
It's
turns
not
out
the only area in town that has that issue.
Yeah, I know it's not the only area, but,
So, and then,
all right, I don't want to linger. I just wondered if we had the outreach to, so that they know it's up, so it doesn't get up. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor.
Yeah.
I showed up to your guys' presentation. You did great. I think that there was, the city provided an opportunity for the neighbor to come in and see what was going on. Our citizens can choose to participate if they want to. There are a few. You guys did great. You very clearly articulated what the plan is. I think I saw you guys while I was working, giving kind of a feel for what's going on. So I appreciate you guys' due diligence with what you're doing with the sidewalks. One observation that I'd like you to kind of take a look at, and this is a chunk of sidewalk that I think is in reasonably good condition. It's on the corner of the 800 block of Pine. I think that you're going to put some ADA accessibility on the corner, but there's a chunk of sidewalk that is, I believe, in good repair, and whoever poured it painstakingly put some great script in there. I couldn't recite what it is that said, but on both sides of the sidewalk, it would be great of us to be aware that someone has done a great job with that piece of sidewalk and do our very best to maintain it.
Sure, we
Yeah.
actually, I know the sidewalk you're talking about, it's around this area. We actually looked at the sidewalk, it is in decent condition, and so we walked this with one of our ADA experts, and we decided to retain as much of the sidewalk as possible. We will need to remove some of it to install this curb ramp. There may be some lips that we need to grind down to prevent any trip hazards, but we were very thoughtful in trying to maintain sidewalk, and we got, I don't want to say we got lucky with this one, but this one is able to be maintained. So some of that script will remain, which keeps the character.
Those are some of the things that, those are the hidden gems of Sandpoint. That is the small town charm that makes Sandpoint Sandpoint. And I appreciate you taking the extra effort to at the very least observing it, and then also doing your very best to maintain it. Thank you.
Is there anyone from the public that would like to comment on this matter? Madam Clerk, no one online?
No, Mr. Mayor, there's no one left online.
I would entertain a motion to approve the preliminary design for the Pine Street Sidewalk project and authorize city staff to finalize the construction documents and advertise for bids. Is there a motion?
So
Second. Been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? This will be a roll call vote.
Councilwoman Rule,
yes.
Councilman Groot,
Yes.
Councilman Sparrow.
Yep.
Councilwoman Sherman,
Yes.
Councilman Darling,
Yes.
Councilwoman McAllister.
Yes.
Okay, motion passes. For the final item under old business, city staff seeks approval to finalize construction plans and advertise for bids for City Hall first floor customer service remodel and structural and HVAC improvement. City Administrator Jennifer Stapleton will provide a presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. What we are seeking council approval for tonight is our much discussed kind of long awaited remodel of the first floor of City Hall. And some extra components with this as well. I will start out with what was our original project, which was the remodel for customer service of the first floor of City Hall. This is about providing kind of a one-stop experience for citizens coming in seeking services at City Hall. What is reflected here is a front reception desk that is actually visible to the public when they walk into the doors of City Hall. They can see a person there. And this front reception area will be staffed with along here, if you can see my pointer, it will be staffed with our front desk personnel for all service groups across the city. So that would be building, that would be planning, that would be parks, that would be general administration, business licenses, and utilities. So people don't have to do what they've had to do in the past at City Hall, figure out who's upstairs, who's downstairs, who's around the corner in an office. It is all right there at the front. This also includes includes moving building and planning from what I'd announced earlier this evening with the temporary location here at City Hall back over to our Community Hall, excuse me, back over to City Hall, with planning and building being relocated down to this first floor and moving up more of our back office and functions, important functions that sit down on the first floor currently, but where people and their functions are not primarily interfacing with the public up to the second floor. In addition, this adds more meeting space for us on the first floor with a conference room that we currently have. And I don't know why it's shining yellow, but I guess it's kind of helpful to see where my pointer is pointing, but now it doesn't want to do yellow. There we go. Here where we currently have a conference room as well as a secondary conference room here that's easy to access on the first floor, primarily for building and planning functions, so people can come into reception. We have a conference room right there. In addition to this, the goal with this remodel was to remodel to really consolidate our functions and integrate all of our various activities at the city into one building. And you see that reflected here with a new entrance into the police department so that police can come right through without people having to go back and forth. And so where people would access front desk services, dog licenses, parking ticket issues, general needs for police would actually, again, be here at the front service. So right now where people come into the lobby area for police and access reception services for police, that would be our after hours function in that other building, because we actually have 2 buildings at City Hall. So where police is, that would still be the 24-hour closure of City Hall function, but during our business hours, all business would be conducted here on the first floor. This also includes retrofitting 2 restrooms that are currently located here, primarily used by staff, but into ADA restrooms on our first floor. If you've been into City Hall and used our restrooms currently, you have to get in the elevator and go upstairs to get to an ADA restroom. So this was one of the requirements of our building official in reviewing our plans, was ensuring that we got compliance on a number of issues, and one of those was ADA accessibility on the first floor. It creates more of an open office environment for staff, again, for better integration of functions. When the public comes into City Hall, instead of going into an area with security buttons, what looks like doorbells in different locations, there's clearly double doors here that will also be ADA accessible and with glass in the doors. So you walk in here, it's clear that this is a entryway into the formal reception area at City Hall. Again, what primarily drove this redesign at City Hall, and this has been a couple of years in the making, was around providing better service to the public, one-stop shopping at the front. It also enables us with our core group working together here in the front. It allows for coverage across business areas. So you don't come in and find that, for example, our parks assistant is not in the office. And so now you're trying to hunt down either Kim or Jason in one of the other offices, or ask at the front desk when they're going to be back. This will provide for cross-training across our different business groups. So there will be someone primarily responsible for a function, but there will also be coverage with others, which also creates better efficiency and efficacy with our staff resources. So we don't have to look at doubling up staff within a service group. We're able to take advantage of the staff we have across service groups, which is more effective for taxpayers and their dollars as well. What is not reflected in this portion of what the remodel was initially about is some other structural components. One of those is our fire doors, where our fire engines exit, where we have the big doors that roll up. When we purchased this building, and when we have done remodels on this building throughout the years, I don't know that we've gone through the full process of pulling building permits for what we've done, or full reviews for building code compliance. As we've done things, we've kind of evolved things and remodeled sometimes on our own through our building iterations at City Hall. And so a lot of this is around really trying to get things to what is right, that provides a good service experience for the public, a better working environment for our staff, as well as a safe and secure public facilities building. We had structural engineers come in and make some assessments of our buildings relative to this remodel and the doors where our fire trucks exit. Those exits, that the big fire doors that have been cut into the wall, compromise the structural stability of that wall itself. And so in the event that we were to have a catastrophic earthquake, we were to have one of our fire personnel make an error and hit the wall with the fire truck, we do not have an adequately secured exterior wall where they exit. So this would also include putting a beam to shore up that wall at fire. In addition, we have an interior wall in our fire bay next to our crew's living quarters, where we have also cut in over time some windows and doorways. That wall also needs to be furred and secured, because it is also a structural issue for us at our building. In addition, we also last fall had a review done for our building relative to our HVAC systems. There were new recommendations that had come out through ASHRAE, the Safety Health HVAC group, around a evacuation of air and airflow in buildings relative to COVID and spread of generally germs, viruses, et cetera, in a building. We had an assessment done of our buildings to look at the safety and health for our employees in the building. And we did not perform well relative to the recommendations. And furthermore, what we learned through it was that our HVAC units, 5 of them on top of City Hall, are also at the end of their useful life and could not be retrofitted to meet the standards. So we have also included and are seeking council approval to include replacement of our HVAC system with this project. We will be receiving a direct allocation of stimulus dollars that are specifically for the city, and we will be having future conversations about that. But one of the purposes of those dollars is specifically for capital projects such as this, around improving health and safety of the buildings. So the HVAC system would be an eligible expense for those dollars, and something that is sorely needed for purposes of the health and safety of our employees, as well as the comfort of the public. In addition with that, that would include also looking at the ducting throughout the building. What they found when they were doing the assessment of our HVAC units is we have flexible ducting, bringing forward the air from the outside through our building. And as many of our staff would note, for the council, we have areas of the building that get particularly hot and are not vented well. And all the staff is smiling because they know those many areas, which include a couple of our conference rooms. So we get in and get a meeting, it gets real hot. We don't have any airflow in there. So this would be replacing the ducting and getting proper airflow for our conference rooms, as well as for our office areas across the building. We frequently have competing air conditioning and space heaters going throughout our building. So it would also overall reduce our energy costs. So we are seeking council approval to put this out to bid within the next week to 10 days. Our architect is finalizing the plans on this, and we would come back to council in June with bids, and ultimately council would have to approve moving forward with the project. If council does award approval of the bid, we would be looking at probably being under construction in City Hall from July through September of this year. It's probably a good 3-month project. And that's again, one of the reasons for moving building and planning over here and figuring out how we do kind of a shift in City Hall to get people moved upstairs, because our building, while we were under construction, our building where these activities take place would be closed until we are done with the remodel. So we would be shifting our frontline staff to the second building, crowding in on police and fire and upstairs while construction takes place.
Okay. Any questions? Yes.
Maybe silly question. Pretty extensive remodel. Is there an option to just build a new building rather than lipstick on a metaphorical?
Thank you, Councilman Grove. We have frequently had that conversation, and I think all of the staff in the city will tell you I wanted to walk away from this remodel at least 50 times in the last couple of years as we've been working through this, particularly as we got into the structural issues. The reality of it is we would not be in a different building even if we were to move forward with this, and for at least another 5 to 10 years realistically. And operating the way that we are, with spread the way that we are, with remodels that have been partially complete, with structural issues in the building, with the HVAC system that is likely to fail on us at any time and requires bringing in cranes to replace our HVAC units. They sit up on the roof. So if we have a failure in the wintertime, we're looking at having to bring cranes in to pull down units on top of the rooftop in the wintertime. Our building has significant issues, and this honestly has been an issue of deferred maintenance. We do have budget available in this year's budget for this remodel. We do have the opportunity with stimulus dollars to put them towards HVAC renovation, like what is needed as part of this building. We have applied for an $80,000 grant for community facilities and are waiting to hear back on that. So we've kind of done everything that we can in order to reduce our costs as much as possible. But at the end of the day, moving is something that would happen down the road. And a move, if we were to move administration offices, it likely would not include fire or police. They would be staying in the building. So if we're to look at this investment, it's still an investment for public
I was
safety.
hesitant to say that, knowing with the structural integrity issues and what we want to do for both of those complementary services, I'm trying to be responsible with my, knowing that the police need more, fire needs a wall that's not going to fall down on them in case of an earthquake, because that's who we need to respond to things if an earthquake were to happen. Thanks.
Any other questions? Is there anyone from the public that would like to comment on this matter? Okay. Hearing none, I would entertain a motion to approve, motion approval to finalize construction plans and advertise for bids for the City Hall first floor customer service remodel and structural and HVAC improvements. Is there a motion?
Second.
Moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? This will be a roll call vote.
Councilman Groot,
Yes.
Councilwoman McAllister,
Yes.
Councilman Sprow,
Yes.
Councilman Darling,
Yes.
Councilwoman Sherman,
Yes.
Councilwoman Rule.
Yes.
Motion passes. The first item under new business this evening is a proposed amendment to City Code 1-6-1 that seeks to align city official appointees. The current organization structure is approved by City Council. Human Resources Cole Ghost will provide a presentation. for us.
Mr. Mayor?
Yeah.
If I may, I hate to interrupt, but were we supposed to take public comment on the master plan for multimodal? And did we fail to do that? And if so, what is our action that we need to take?
Yeah, I did not ask for public input on that, and I apologize for that. So,
Yeah, I don't know where that puts us legally. Are we required to do that?
no, we're not.
We are not. Okay, I just
It's
I
It's a good
realized
practice
that
that we
when
do with
Okay.
every action.
I mean, we failed to take it, that there's no requirement that we have public comment. That
Okay.
was a matter
I
before
just
the
wanted to
council.
make sure we didn't need to do something at our next meeting because we failed to do that and have an opportunity. Thank you.
Okay, Nicole?
Mr. Mayor. I think we've discussed this change a few times in previous city council meetings. I don't have a fancy presentation or anything. It's pretty cut and dry. Just some code cleanup based on structural or department structure changes that we've made over the last 6 years now, to be in line with recent personnel changes, title changes, and reporting structures. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Certainly none. Okay,
Presentation.
great presentation.
Thank you.
Is there anyone from the public that would like to comment on this matter?
No, Mr. Mayor.
I will now read the title of the ordinance as follows. An ordinance of the city of Sandpoint and municipal corporation of the state of Idaho, amending Sandpoint City Code Title 1, Chapter 6, Section 1, appointed city officers, providing for repeal and severability, and providing for publication and an effective date. So I'll entertain a motion that the ordinance passes first reading by title only and that summary is approved. Is there a motion?
Move. Second.
Been moved and seconded. This will be a roll call vote.
Councilman Sparrow,
Yes.
Councilman Darling,
Yes.
Councilwoman Sherman,
Yes.
Councilwoman Rule,
Yes.
Councilwoman McAllister,
Yes.
Councilman Groot.
Yes.
The ordinance has passed its first reading by title only, and the summary is approved. I would entertain the motion that the ordinance, that the rules requiring 3 separate readings, once the ordinance is entirely be suspended, and that the ordinance passes its second and third readings under suspension of the rules. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. This is a roll call vote.
Councilwoman Sherman,
Yes.
Councilwoman Rule,
Yes.
Councilwoman McAllister,
Yes.
Councilman Sparrow,
Yes.
Councilman Groot,
Yes.
Councilman Darling.
Yes.
Motion passed, and this ordinance is considered read, passed, and adopted under suspension of the rules. The final item on the agenda this evening is a brief presentation for finance on the treasurer's quarterly financial report for the quarter ending March 31st, 2021.
All right, I like being last.
Last short and sweet, right?
Yes, yes. This will be easy. The quarterly report came in as usual, right on target on most everything. This is the same format that you're used to. It's late, so I'm apparently tired. So the personnel expenses came in are at 40%. We're about 50% through our budget as of the end of this quarter. Not about, we are 50% through the quarter. And we're at 38% of for personnel expenses. This is due to our change in our payroll structure of, not structure, but our payroll pay cycles, that we're at 26 pay cycles now. So just to remind you that this depends on how they fall in the year. And it also depends on the accruals that are done at the beginning of the year and at the end of the year. At the beginning of this year, we had the first pay period that was in October. The majority of that was actually accrued back to last year. So even though it was paid in the current year, money wise, it actually got accrued most of it back. So you'll see the majority of the exact same thing happen at the end of next fiscal year. So that percentage is a little low when you're comparing it to prior years. And I'll show that graph later. M&O is very in line with, there's the graphs, the what's happened in the prior years. There's what I was talking about, the wages and benefits being a little lower this year when compared to last year at the second quarter. And then also compared to prior years, you'll see this is where we changed this last year. But that will make up at the very end of the year. Overall, our expenses for general fund are trending in line with last year and the year before for overall expenses, with the majority of the capital costs starting now and been ramping up through the end of the fiscal year September. Next is the revenues. Just wanted to remind you of the property taxes, that first part of the grant that we got for, let's pull this down, just kind of spelled out there. And we got for the Governor's Public Safety Initiative grant. We received all of that in the first quarter of this year, which normally that would have been in the first quarter and also the third quarter. But since that was all up front, it makes it a little higher percentage wise. The revenue is down here compared to prior years. But that will catch up as the year goes on and is closed out, property taxes plus that. Professional revenue funds, again, nothing to note here. Majority of the projects will be going on. The one thing I'll point out at the very end is the lot tax. Actually, after this is done, I'll give a quick thing on the cash, the monthly cash report that will address the lot tax. Nothing to note again here. Enterprise funds, those are in line. The wastewater the reason why that one is only 19% is because of capital outlay. Again, those projects are not started yet. Again, those graphs are right in line with prior years. Again, this is all in line as well. Any additional questions or any more detail, let me know. Resort city tax. I actually added something to this one this time because I wanted to point out this quarter we are about 30,000 above even last year what we were at this time, which is above any other year that we've ever had.
I'm sure you've all experienced in town that we've had a lot of people in town, and this just shows right there that it's continuing to increase. And then you can find the link there to the actual quarterly detail report. And then I wanted to skip into this. The cash report is a monthly report that by state ordinance, or by state code, we have to publish this every month. So this is always out there. We don't normally do a presentation on it, but I did have a couple questions this time on it. So I wanted to just quickly go over it. These are the cash balances that we have in these different funds at the end of the month. That's different than what our fund balances are. Fund balances will take into consideration, and I'll just use the lot one, for example, because that's an easy one. At the end of the last fiscal year, we had expenditures that were.
Are you wanting something different on the screen?
Oh,
It's like,
Good catch.
I need to go out and then back in, right?
What are you missing?
My Zoom.
Needs to share a different screen.
Oh, a different screen.
Yeah. New share.
Yeah, just stop sharing. And then, yeah, then just go click on that, share it.
Ah, yes, that's what I was talking about.
good.
The cash, sorry, the cash report. So the lot one is the one I wanted to point out here. In the balance as of March, it looks like we have $364,000 sitting in that account. What this is not accounting for is that there was a short-term loan taken at the end of last fiscal year, knowing that we were going to get this cash in. So that basically brought the cash balance at year end to zero. And then we're still collecting the very remaining, hopefully will be this month, we'll have the rest of the remaining in. And then I'm able to then close out that account, pay back that loan, and it will be all zero. But I wanted to, there's just a few minor things on here that are like that, so this balance isn't, oh, we have 300,000 more to spend out of that account. I just wanted to bring that up because that was a good question that I had, that just the accounting behind the scenes that goes on. There's not very little of that actually, besides that there, but there is always balances behind the scenes that are going on, bills that are in that aren't actually paid, the cash isn't out of the account yet. So just timing differences. At year end, when you get this, then everything has been reconciled, everything is done. So the very year end fund balances, those are when we look at those are when you actually see, those are the actual true balances that have been all up to date. And we'll be quickly or soon be talking about that with all the budgeting that's going to kick off very soon. So other than that, any questions or anything else?
You did great. Thank you.
Okay.
Let's go.
I'm glad you
All right.
did this.
Thanks, Sarah. No other questions? With that, our meeting